Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Greetings and salutations from Chicago. It is the day before July 4th, which would make it July 3rd. If math serves me well, which it hasn't in the past. So 86 degrees, that's oh, actually, yeah, 85, I guess now. 85 degrees here, or 82. It really depends on which you're looking at. It's in the 80s now. It's not, what is it, butt-ass hot out there, as butt-ass hot as it was yesterday. Got up to like 96, I think, here. Woo! Toasty. So we're going to talk about the weather, or at least the upcoming weather, coming up shortly. First, I want to thank everybody that came out Wednesday night for the second anniversary of Mornin Extra. We just did a little hour show, put some news in there too. You know, earn our keep, as it were. So everybody that came out for that, I really do appreciate it. It was a fun time. You know, I wish these stories that were doing this had a little bit more punch to it, you know, where it was actually affecting more people. Maybe it is, I don't know, but just keep doing it, I guess, till, you know, the falling rocks find us. Come on. What are you waiting on? Laine P's in the house. Good to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. I know down there in Arkansas, it's nice and swampy, as the South usually is around this time of year. People often wonder, well, how come it gets so freaking hot, and sweaty and stanky? Well, it happens. What's up, Chuck? Good to see you. Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show. UFO Show, intergalactic. Another dimension indeed. So, yeah, I don't know. If you watched the Undercurrent on Wednesday, we were talking about heat and preparedness and stuff like that. Drinking a lot of water, you know, maybe boosting your AC up a little bit, compensate, because I mean, people on the East Coast probably going to tell me to go straight to hell. Like, I'm sitting in a bathtub full of ice right now, and you're telling me to crank down the AC. You're crazy. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I believe that's what Mom Donnie was doing. He's asking people to set their thermostats to 78 degrees during this heat wave, I guess, so the grid doesn't go tits up. The power grid, that is. We'll see. But what's going to happen with this heat? I know it's summer. I know I get it every time people say, well, it's summertime. What do you think? It's supposed to be hot. Dirt. Yeah, but not like this. This is a little bit stupid. So let's get to it since we're here. So a heat dome to flip from eastern to western U.S. next week ahead of North American monsoon. Monsoon? What monsoon was that? It's just, look at those temperatures. That was yesterday. Thursday was Boston was 98, New York 100. First time in about 14 years, New York has had 100-degree weather. I remember that when I was living there, and I'll never forget, we're going to see Leonard Skinner down at Coney Island, and we're like, nah, it's an outside concert. We're like, nah. No, sir. Ain't doing that. So as much as the eastern half of the United States endures high heat, high humidity into Independence Day, which is tomorrow, changes are expected that will lead to a gradual reduction of the extreme conditions in the east and lead to an extended period of heat in the west. At the start of this week, a massive heat dome built over the middle of the nation has been slowly shifting eastward since. The next phase of the heat dome will be for it to shrink in place over the southeast this weekend. As the heat dome weakens, thunderstorms will progress across the Midwest and the Northeast. And we definitely had a thunderstorm last night, which was nice relief. You always like to see the rain come down and cool things off. But if it's hot the next day, you're just looking at a sauna, basically, how that works out. But at least you get a small reprieve. So I believe this is AccuWeather's forecast for the upcoming week, I believe. So all that, you got the hot down here, down Willie's way, Willie in North Carolina there, and thunderstorms, humid, very warm in Texas. There's a shock. And pleasant. Go fuck yourself, West Coast. Then people say, well, what causes thunderstorms? The short answer is when you have like hot, moist air and then cold, dry air crashes into it, then you get rain because the cold air condenses, the cold air turns into water droplets and falls down. That's the short answer. I'm sure it's a more scientific approach to that, but that's basically what happens. And then when the fronts collide like that, then you get a lot of thunder and lightning. Very, very frightening. Next week, with lower pressures and temperatures in the central and eastern states, batches of thunderstorms will be more numerous. A new heat dome will build between the Rockies and the Pacific coast. So guess what, West Coast? Suck it, Trebek. You're going to get some of that stuff too. And I know people in New Mexico or Arizona are just like, really? In Nevada are just like, really? Do we really need more heat? As the jet stream bulges northward in the west, an area of high pressure will build over the region. The setup will allow temperatures to trend upward initially from several degrees Fahrenheit next week to 10 to 20 degrees above the 30-year average by the middle of July. Yay! It always seems like right when July starts, boom, that's when all the hell and fire and brimstone starts. The heat dome will bring the highest temperatures of the season so far, even eclipsing the extreme marks set during the spring heat waves in Phoenix, Vegas, and Palm Springs, California. Look at that. So that's bulging up there. Look at it bulging up there. Highs will be in the low to mid 90s in Denver much of next week, but may reach the upper 90s to near 100 by next weekend. In Salt Lake City, highs will mainly range from the mid 90s to near 100 next week, and then are likely to be in the low 100s the following week. Oh, Salt Lake City. A temperature inversion that develops beneath the heat dome will create light winds and may trap a considerable amount of wildfire smoke over the interior West. Oh boy, not only you get heat, you get all that smoke too. Resulting in a substantially broad area of poor visibility and air quality. We'll talk about more about that with Washington, D.C. coming up shortly. So there's the areas of smoke and haze. Look at that. All over the place there. The heat and smoke could put many people at risk for respiratory problems, especially those with respiratory ailments. While light winds are expected much of next week, they may aid firefighting efforts of existing fires. The many days of heat and dry conditions could continue the high risk of new fires in some areas. Yay, new fires? What? Yeah, low humidity is great until fires start, and then, wow, not good. The terrain and large fires can create their own breezes in some cases. Over the past week, fires have consumed more than 400,000 acres in the West, mostly in Utah, and accounted for more than 70% of wildfires in the U.S. to date. So the AccuWeather's long-range team of meteorologists is expecting the North American monsoon to become active toward the middle of July. This shift in the winds from the west to the south tends to allow more humid air to flow northward into the west, leading to an uptick in thunderstorms. Yes. Bad news. That's bad news for the fires there, because the humidity will tend to help stifle them. But good news if you like sticky ass weather. Initially, little rain may fall with the storms, and the risk of lightning-induced wildfires may increase along with large dust storms or haboobs. Haboobs. No comment. As the monsoon develops and expands northward, the dry lightning and wildfire danger and accompanying heat surge will tend to push farther to the north in the west and into part of southwest Canada. Then as the pattern evolves and humidity levels climb with areas of rain, the fire situation and dust storms tend to ease. Locally, heavy rain may unfold with a risk of flash flooding. However, during a typical monsoon, flash flooding events tend to be very widely separated. So this is the drought monitor right here. Look at that. You know there's not a drought here in the middle part here, because we have been getting our asses handed to us with the wet weather. Until then, much of the West will experience abnormally dry to extreme and exceptional drought, like they usually do there. So, the East, like I said, those 90s, high 90s, low 100s on the East Coast. It's not a strange thing. It's just it doesn't happen very often, and when it does, it's pretty miserable, especially if you don't have any air conditioning or cooling centers or that sort of thing. So what about Europe? Not the band. I'm sure they're doing things. Are Europe's extreme summers the new normal? What's the science say? Science. Look at that, people diving in there. That is a lot of white people. It reminds me of the time I went up to Cadott, Wisconsin for a music festival, and we went to Chippewa Falls, where the Leinenkugel brewery is. And so it was a very hot day, and we said, okay, we're going to go swimming. And we went swimming in this river, and, I'm not exactly the tan man at all. But I look like George Hamilton compared to these folks, the Wisconsin people. Wisconsin. I think the cheese curds make their skin translucent like that. So temperatures in Europe hit a new high this summer with hotter early summer heat waves triggering illness, deaths, and the collapse of infrastructure across the continent. Transport buckled on Sunday as temperatures hit 40 C, that's about 140 degrees Fahrenheit, across Germany, the Czech Republic, and Poland. In France, days averaging 29.8 degrees Celsius, or about 85.6 degrees Fahrenheit, spiking to 44 C, or 111.2 Fahrenheit, in one town, gave way to storms, leaving an estimated 1,000 excess deaths behind. Yikes, yes, that heat will kill you. Hey, Ellen, good morning to you. Hopefully you're doing well. What is it? Oh, dumbass. Not you. I'm the dumbass. I forgot to take my name down. Good to see you, Ellen. Thanks for joining us this morning. Scenes like this may well be the new normal. Last summer's heat wave alone caused an estimated 2,300 climate-related deaths in 12 European countries. That's according to WWA. Where that is. Worldwide. Oh, here we go. A study by the World Weather Attribution has found that intense heat on this level is now tens to hundreds of times more likely than it was in 2003. And was unheard of 50 years ago. Polishing up a sermon you're going to deliver in a Presbyterian USA church the day after the 4th. Oh, interesting. We have a Presbyterian USA story coming up. You are the queen of segue. Thank you. Or maybe you're a mind reader. That's probably what it is. Heat-related mortality is likely to remain a feature of Europe's warming climate, warns Dr. Hans Klug, the World Health Organization's regional director for Europe. Deaths have already risen by an average of 52 per million people annually since the 90s, he told Al Jazeera. A trend, he says, shows little sign of reversing on its own. So what does that mean for the future? Are these temperatures the new normal? And if so, why? Is this really the new normal? Yes, it certainly looks that way. According to WWA, heat waves were generally about 3.5 degrees Celsius cooler in June 1976 and 2 degrees Celsius cooler even in 2003. That was 23 years ago. Think of it like a race where the starting line has been moved much closer to the finish, Dr. Ashke Dioris of the University of Reading told Al Jazeera. Ultimately, this is down to global warming, he says. Europe has warmed at roughly twice the global average since the 1980s, according to the European Commission's Climate Change Service, Copernicus. Dioris says this amounts to loading the dice towards once rare extremes. WWA's modeling goes further. At current emission rates, an event of the magnitude of this summer's heat wave is expected to occur every couple of decades, and today's extremes are effectively a preview of what an ordinary summer could look like by the middle of the century. So why is this happening in Europe now? The immediate trigger is a stalled high-pressure system or a heat dome like we're experiencing here, which traps heat in one concentrated area for days or weeks. And we were telling you about this the other day. Yeah, keeping it, it's like a dome. It's literally like a dome, and you can't get any, they can't break through the dome. Usually when it does, then you start seeing like tornadoes and stuff like that. Hang on a sec. Heat domes aren't new, but Europe's already shifted. Baseline means the same pattern now produces far hotter outcomes than decades ago. Professor Hannah Cloak of the University of Reading told Al Jazeera that's because the warming behind new extreme weather patterns comes from emissions released decades ago, and the climate system takes time to respond, so we're feeling the effects now of pollution from the past. Oh, good. Nice to see people in the past have screwed over their future. Copernicus's European State of the Climate 2025 report confirms this. More than 95% of the continent saw above average annual temperatures last year, alongside record alpine glacier loss and the highest sea surface temperatures ever measured in Europe. And because Europe is warming roughly twice as fast as the rest of the planet, that gap with the global average is projected to keep widening, meaning whatever the world experiences on average in the coming decades, Europe will likely see first and worse. Is this trajectory irreversible? Partly. Some of the damage is permanent, some of it isn't yet. Take glaciers, for example. Because the effects of pollution from decades ago are cumulative, some of what we are experiencing this summer is already locked in, Cloak said. Alpine glaciers, which feed major European rivers, she says, have already shrunk past the point of recovery and their contribution to summer river flow is permanently reduced. Not everything is set in stone, however. Every ton of emissions avoided changes the odds of what comes next, Cloak said. What we do now, therefore, will decide the difference between summers that are simply hard to live with in the future and summers that become genuinely beyond our ability to cope with. Some resources, like groundwater in northern Europe, can still recover, but the window to act is narrowing with each dry year, she said. So what is this doing to human health? The toll is already severe and likely to worsen. The Lancet Countdown Europe calculates that there were 62,000 heat-related deaths across the region in 2024 alone, with projections showing a steep further rise by 2050 if we don't make changes. Much of the problem is architectural and largely unaddressed. Most of the housing stock across this region was designed for a colder climate to retain heat, not shed it, he said, warning that without large-scale retrofitting, deaths could keep climbing past 2050, regardless of how good warning systems become. I know hospitals in Germany don't have air conditioning. They have ventilation systems to, get the flow of air through there, but they don't use AC. Usually they rely on opening windows to cool things off because it's usually coolish. Hey, Poppy. Good to see you. Hey, Uncle, just in time for the heat wave. The freak in the White House has ordered the largest fireworks show in history, 850,000 of them. Usually this event is about 20,000, maybe burning it down. Maybe. We're actually going to talk about that coming up here in just a moment, Poppy. I shouldn't even have to do this news. You guys already know the news. You know it. You know what's up. So he said, warning that without large-scale retrofitting, deaths could keep climbing past 2050, regardless of how good warning systems become. His prescription: treat heat as predictable, not an emergency. Governments need to plan for heat the way they plan for winter flu, as a recurring, predictable challenge requiring permanent infrastructure, not a one-off crisis requiring emergency improvisation. The highest return step, he added, is identifying who's most at risk, often older people living alone, and reaching them before a heat wave hits, not after. Cloak points to two priorities: early warning systems that reliably reach the people who most need to be protected, and an overhaul of water infrastructure in Europe, which has been built for rainfall patterns that no longer exist. Bureau says emissions also still matter. Cutting them won't eliminate heat waves, which are a natural part of the climate system, but doing so would make them less intense, less frequent, and shorter lived. None of the experts who spoke to Al Jazeera described this as hopeless. They do warn that the window of opportunity for addressing the issue is narrowing. Infrastructure can still be retrofitted, emissions can still be cut, warning systems can still be improved if the decisions to do so are made now rather than after the next heat wave. What a normal European summer looks like in 2050 is still being written, they said. Yeah, so again, to reiterate, Europeans don't normally have air conditionings in their home because they don't really need it. It's usually kind of like Seattle weather during the summer, where it's cloudy a lot of times, you get a lot of rain, and it kind of keeps the temperatures down. And so usually a fan at the most is what they would need if it was a kind of hot day. But these were incredible. We were telling you on Wednesday about Seville, Spain. They got up to like around 105. I think it was 109 degrees or something like that. Something insane in Spain. That is, that's crazy. But again, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, we should either adapt or, we're just going to get burnt out, literally. So, there's, of course, America's 250th birthday tomorrow. Yay. It's kind of like celebrating that your old racist uncle's birthday. It's like, yeah, he's still your kin, but you don't really like him that much these days. You're buying stock in European AC companies. Yeah, I keep talking about that video that Kevin was played the other day. It looked like Black Friday in America at Walmart, and people were just storming this place to get air conditioners and fans. It was like, that was crazy. But with the heat and everything, some of the stuff's going to get canceled over the weekend. As America 250 events are being canceled, reshaped as heat dome grips. There's that guy. So these are, oops, wait a minute, let's go back there. What was this guy doing? Okay, so these are temperatures. Look at that, Charleston, South Carolina, 98 degrees, Philly, 99. Those are the regular temperatures, and these on the left are the feels like when you add humidity into the mix. 106. It always feels like 106 in Georgia anyway. Extreme weather is beginning to reshape outdoor events planned across the U.S. in the coming days, with the hottest weather in years threatening outdoor events planned for America's 250th birthday and the World Cup. World Cup better be full of ice water, right? I'm just saying at this point. Thursday was the peak of the heat wave, with new daily high temperature records being set across the Northeast. In New York City, the temperature reached 100 degrees for the first time since July 18th, 2012. While AccuWeather real field temperatures topped out at 107 degrees. Those are all Fahrenheit, by the way. These are extremely dangerous conditions, and they will affect every part of our city. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani said, "Together we will continue managing this heat, this month's celebrations, and whatever comes our way." Washington, D.C. had a high of 102 degrees, breaking the daily record of 101 set in 1898. The AccuWeather real field temperature reached a staggering 115 degrees Fahrenheit in the afternoon. So these were old records, and now the new records. Poughkeepsie, 103 degrees. Atlantic City, 103. Wilmington, Delaware. Reading, Pennsylvania. And D.C. Look at that. Well, that looks like the desert. And don't forget, kids, humidity's thrown in there too. Ooh, humidity. Temperatures are not predicted to be as extreme into the weekend, but could still reach dangerous levels, which is affecting countless outdoor holiday festivities planned through Sunday. So communities are already changing or canceling plans for the holiday weekend. In Philly, the Independence Day parade was originally expected to be longer than usual this year, but organizers canceled it because of the high temperatures, according to 6ABC. A code red has also been declared, and the All-American Block Party planned for July 3rd was canceled. The World Cup match scheduled in Philly is still planned for Saturday afternoon with temperatures in the 90s. There is also the risk of a thunderstorm during the match, which could force play to be suspended and disrupt any outdoor viewing parties planned across the city. Nearby towns have also canceled their annual parades due to the dangerous heat. The parade is one of our community's most beloved traditions, and we share in the disappointment of its cancellation, especially as we celebrate America's 250th birthday. With dangerous heat in the forecast, the safety of our families, our marchers, and our first responders must come first, said Jane Mousonnier, interim municipal administrator of Norristown, Pennsylvania. In D.C., the Great American State Fair is continuing amid the heat, with states having climate-controlled tents to provide visitors a place to take a break from the heat. Electricity demand across the region is also expected to climb as millions of people turn up the air conditioning to keep their homes cool. Energy use could reach record levels, according to AccuWeather senior meteorologist Alan Repper, with utilities taking extra steps to make sure power production can meet demand. Farther west, drought and an elevated wildfire risk are forcing some communities to cancel their Independence Day fireworks displays. Our priority is public safety and ensuring we can respond to active fires and other emergencies, said Cripple Creek, Colorado Fire Chief O'Connor. I guess it just has, he's like Sherry, just has the one night. That was a song by the band, wasn't it? Up on Cripple Creek, she sends me, if I take a leak, she bends me, or something like that. I can't remember how that goes. They're a joker's dream if I ever did see one burn. Dee-dee-dur. It would not be responsible to proceed with a fireworks display under these circumstances. Yeah, if it's dry, yeah, last thing you want to do is put fire up in the air that falls down. The city of Trinidad, Colorado also canceled some of its water-themed activities in an event to conserve water as drought conditions worsen. With the heat dome expected to persist into the holiday weekend, meteorologists recommend taking steps to reduce the risk of heat-related illness. So limit heat exposure if you can. Extreme heat significantly raises the risk of heat-related illnesses, particularly during outdoor activities. Stay well hydrated and limit unnecessary exposure to high temperatures. So if you're outdoors, you know, with the barbecues and stuff like that, yeah, there's going to be people drinking alcohol at these things. If you're going to be drinking alcohol, make sure you pair it up with a bottled water too, because that alcohol will dry you up and you will be fucked. So drink lots and lots of water. Do you? Oh yeah, the yodelay-hoo, yodelay-lady-hoo. I'm glad older people watch this show because these references would just fly over young people's heads. Up on Cripple Creek. Know the warning signs. Watch for dizziness, nausea, rapid heartbeat, and intense thirst. These may indicate heat-related illness. Yes, that could be a sign of heat exhaustion or heat stroke. You're feeling dizzy, sit down, drink some water, and don't forget the electrolytes too, because you'll be probably sweating like a prostitute in church. So and then you'll lose a lot of sodium, so you gotta get that back too. Protect vulnerable populations. Check on older adults, infants, young children, and people with sensitive medical conditions. Help them minimize outdoor activity and stay in an air-conditioned environment whenever possible. Plan outdoor activities for early morning or evening when it's typically less hot. Yeah, the heat of the day usually starts around 2 p.m. normally and goes through the, like last night, I think, or the night before last, it was like in the 90s at like 8 o'clock or some ridiculous time. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's like Molly Hatchet said in Flirting with Disaster, it ain't for everybody. And dress for the heat. Wear lightweight, light-colored, loose-fitting clothing. Try not to wear your tuxedo if you can, or your whatever. So yeah, that's happening. And that's the one thing I worry about is people who are going to be outdoors, especially if they're partaking in grandpa's cough medicine. The alcohol will really dry you out. It does anyway. That's a good tip anyway. If you're drinking alcohol at a party or something, make sure you drink plenty of water too. And that'll help you out. So be safe this weekend, folks. Hang on just a second. Oh, you know what? Did I not put that in there? Okay, I must have taken that out. I'm sorry about that, Poppy. I don't have that story, but yeah, the Poppy was right when she was talking about the 850,000 fireworks that they're going to be firing off. I can just kind of okay, that isn't in there. All right, or is it down here? Hang on a second. No. Okay. So basically what the story says is, yeah, lots and lots of fireworks, and it's probably going to cause a lot of smog from that, you know, especially with the oppressive heat and the humidity and this dome basically trapping the smoke in place from the fireworks is going to be detrimental to a lot of people, especially if they have breathing problems and whatnot in the sea. That was the story. I don't know why I didn't put that in there, but that was the story that you were talking about. So thanks for reminding me about that. I appreciate it. Rando. Right. Yeah. The declaration, was yesterday. That's still chocolate flavored. Chocolate pool. What's up, John? Good to see you. Yeah, so that's just going to add to the fun in DC, where it's just going to be a smoky, hot ass mess. No bueno. But speaking of Trump and his dumb ideas, Trump faces midterm challenges amid slowing U.S. job growth. Uh-oh. Sounds like his bullshit's not working. The U.S. labor market showed signs of cooling. That was the only thing cooling in June, as weaker than expected job growth and downward revisions to previous months pointed to a broader slowdown ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. New data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed that non-farm payrolls increased by 57,000 last month, significantly below economists' expectations of twice that, 115,000, while the unemployment rate edged down slightly to 4.2%. That number is always skewed. They never figure in the people who have stopped applying for unemployment, which would broadly increase those numbers. However, revisions to April and May data reduced previously reported gains by a combined 74,000 jobs, reinforcing concerns that employment momentum is weakening after months of uneven performance. Despite remaining in positive territory, June's figures underscored fragility in the labor market, with hiring concentrated in limited sectors while broader job creation stagnated. Healthcare and social assistance accounted for most gains, while sectors such as manufacturing, retail, transportation, and financial services showed little movement. Leisure and hospitality, which had posted stronger growth in the previous month, recorded net job losses. Economists noted that the slowdown comes amid ongoing inflationary pressure and higher operating costs for employers, which may be limiting hiring decisions. The operating costs, that also includes building leases if they don't own their own property, which are significant too, especially in the big cities. A key factor behind the declining unemployment rate was a sharp drop in the labor force participation rate, which fell to its lowest level since March 2021. Analysts say the decline reflects a combination of demographic pressures, reduced net migration, and workers exiting the labor market after difficulty securing employment. Economists warn that a shrinking labor force may mask underlying weakness in job creation by reducing the number of people actively seeking work. Average hourly earnings rose by 3.5% year-on-year, trailing inflation and resulting in continued erosion of purchasing power for U.S. workers. The gap between wage growth and rising prices has added pressure on households already facing higher costs, particularly as energy prices remain elevated following recent geopolitical disruptions and, of course, this goddamn heat wave that's cooking everything. A few years ago, the jobs report would be around 300,000. Current reports would crash the market. Don't understand. Well, because the market is rigged. That's why the market is not an indicator of the actual economy. You remember the Pam Bondi thing in her deposition or whatever she said? But the stock market's at 50,000. Market attention has turned to the Federal Reserve, which is expected to maintain its current policy stance as it balances inflation control with signs of cooling employment. Some analysts suggest the weaker jobs data may reinforce expectations that policymakers will delay further rate adjustments in the near term. The labor market slowdown carries potential political consequences for Trump's political shit party, Republican Party, as it heads into the 2026 midterm elections. While the White House has defended its economic agenda, basically lied about it, arguing that the labor market remains resilient, opposition figures have pointed to weakening job growth as evidence of broader economic strain. Democratic lawmakers argue that recent economic policies have contributed to the instability in hiring trends and household purchasing power, while the administration maintains that long-term growth fundamentals remain intact. Yes! As Baghdad Bob said, no, everything is fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. What was it, Leslie Nielsen, that meme from one of the Naked Gun movies? And he goes, relax, folks. Everything is fine. There's nothing to worry about. And there's like shit blowing up behind him. Leslie Nielsen. The only Nielsen rating that's worth a shit. Exactly, John. What's up, Ghost Art? Good to see you. Happy Friday. So, you remember NAFTA? The NAFTA became the USMCA, which I hear it's fun to stay there. You're a construction worker, or a cowboy, or a Native American. Why has Trump refused to renew the USMCA, and what will that mean? So this was his idea, I believe. The U.S. has announced that it will not renew a trilateral trade agreement covering $1.6 trillion of trade between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, one day before the agreement was due for its first joint mandatory review. A statement from the U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Jameson Greer on Wednesday said the U.S. would not agree to renew the trilateral agreement, also known as USMCA. It's fun to stay at the USMCA. It's fun. In its current form, the U.S. will continue to engage with Mexico and Canada to address the agreement's shortcomings and our trade deficits with these countries. However, the agreement remains in force pending resolution of these issues or until the agreement's termination, the statement read. The NAFTA, the thing that closed all the businesses. Yeah, John. It added that the U.S. will meet Mexico during the week of July 20th for a third round of bilateral negotiations related to the USMCA joint review. The U.S.'s decision not to renew the deal comes after Trump repeatedly expressed that he did not see the need for the trade agreement. In January, Trump said that there was no real advantage to it. It's irrelevant. Adding last month, I don't know that I'm going to renew it. I don't know. I don't really know anything. I'm so big and fat and I'll probably just be consumed by my own gravity. He also signaled that he was open to negotiations with Mexico and Canada, saying, we're talking to him. We'll see if we can do something. We'll see if we do something. So what is the USMCA? The trilateral deal came into effect on July 1st, 2020, during Trump's first term. Was it Trump's first term? It was. Yeah, because he was first elected in 2016. Replacing NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. Hang on a second. According to the U.S. Department of State, the USMCA created a more balanced reciprocal trade, supporting high-paying jobs for Americans and grow the North American economy. That good job there. It also included chapters covering digital trade and anti-corruption and good regulatory practices, as well as a chapter devoted to ensuring that small and medium-sized enterprises benefit from the agreement. But the U.S.'s latest decision will now trigger a 6-year review of the agreement under a sunset clause that Trump negotiated in his first term. Without an agreement to amend the deal, the trade agreement will expire on July 1st, 2036, so in 10 years. Last month, Trump said of the agreement, we don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have, and they have to treat us better. What, they want food, plastic in their foods? I'm pretty sure they can get that on their own. $40 fruit trays. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can do that quite on their own. In advance of the statement, Greer said more time is needed to address problems with the USMCA, which include growing U.S. goods trade deficits with Mexico and Canada, reaching $197 billion and $48.3 billion, respectively, in 2025. For Canada, which is the U.S.'s largest supplier of crude oil, much of the deficit was driven by oil imports, while for Mexico, the deficit has grown as companies have shifted their supply chains away from China to Mexico in response to Trump's tariffs on Chinese origin goods. This means more goods are recorded as being imported to the U.S. from Mexico. Moreover, a Trump administration official told the news agency Reuters that despite imposing 25% tariffs on both Canada's and Mexico's car industries, 50% tariffs on metals, and 10% tariffs on lumber, the president remains skeptical of any deal with the two countries. So Mexican Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard told a news conference on Wednesday that his country wants to help address U.S. concerns about job losses and trade deficits. There is no difference that I can identify between Mexico, the U.S., and Canada that is so big that we cannot resolve it, said Ebrard. That's an interesting name. Who joined a virtual meeting with Greer and Dominic LeBlanc, the Canadian minister responsible for U.S.-Canada trade. We wouldn't allow our car-making industry to be at a disadvantage, Ebrard said, adding, I'd say that has been the main point of discussion with the U.S. in all these talks, protecting our automotive industry. LeBlanc also said Canada would continue to address Trump's tariffs on his country's steel, aluminum, or, that says aluminium. Aluminium. Characters, cars, and lumber. We agreed on the importance of continuing our discussions and identifying ways to ensure trade and investment frameworks between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico continue to support North American prosperity and competitiveness, he said. So what happens next? With Canada and Mexico both open to continuing talks to resolve issues related to the USMCA agreement, which will continue until 2036. For the time being, things will be business as usual. Trump could use tariffs to apply pressure during negotiations. Alternatively, bilateral agreements could become more important than the trilateral deal. However, they would be unlikely to match the trading strength and volumes under the USMCA. So business as usual, but it could be, that whole thing could be in jeopardy. Yes. And going back to what John was talking about, NAFTA, that was under Clinton. And, yeah, Clinton did a lot of dirty shit while he was there. The Telecommunications Act of 1996, that was, I believe that was Clinton. NAFTA, that was him, among other things, of course. If you know anything about the history of the Clinton administration. So, the one we were alluding to earlier, what Ellen was talking about, the U.S. Presbyterian Church has voted to recognize the Gaza genocide. The U.S.'s largest Presbyterian denomination has voted to recognize the genocide in Gaza and impose an arms embargo and divest from Israel on Tuesday, adding to another major divestment vote that was conducted on Sunday. The General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in the U.S., also known as PCUSA, voted to officially adopt a resolution that will have the institution identify Israel's war on Gaza as a genocide, lobby U.S. Congress for an arms embargo against Israel, and encourage its members to boycott Israeli products that contribute to its war. The vote was 454 to 15. Yeah, they should probably also say, hey, don't do that funny business in the NDAA where you're trying to marry the U.S. military with the Israeli military, too. That is a definite no-no. The overwhelming votes our church made this week signal a major shift in public opinion on Palestine. Bob Ross, steering committee member of the Palestine Justice Network, the PJN, of the Presbyterian Church, told the New Arab, that's this outfit here. Ross notes that Presbyterians come from across the political divide and are located in every corner of the U.S., making it a politically and geographically diverse denomination. The General Assembly, which reflects this diversity, spoke in a unified voice against genocide and for measures that will hopefully contribute to the liberation of Palestine, Ross adds. Reverend Adi Domsky told the New Arab, though many individual Presbyterians have been naming the genocide since it began, the importance of the larger assembly coming together to clearly name what is happening to Palestinians both in Gaza and the West Bank allows our collective church to be more effectively to more effectively participate in the larger movement for Palestinian liberation, especially the BDS movement, the boycott, divest, and sanction movement there. Commissioners also voted in favor of a resolution to affirm Kairos, Palestine 2, a moment of truth, faith in a time of genocide, a November 2025 statement from Palestine's Christian community calling for intensified international boycott, divestment, and sanctions, the BDS efforts against Israel. And that vote was 447 to 21. Curious who the 21 and the 15 are in these situations. They're probably like, more genocide, please. Go away there. Tuesday's vote comes after the church on Sunday unanimously voted to divest from the controversial tech company Palantir. We'll talk about another country that did that too. A whole country coming up. And GE Aerospace, which makes engines for GE Aerospace, that's interesting, which makes engines for fighter jets and helicopters used by the Israeli army in its war on the enclave. There's somebody's husband was an engineer, a designer at GE Aerospace. I'm trying to think of who that was. Economic measures, when taken by a critical mass of major institutions, can over time weaken Israel to the point where they will have no choice but to surrender to Palestinians' simple desires to be free from occupation, dispossession, apartheid, and genocide, Ross told the New Arab, noting the church's Palestinian partners have been asking to divest since 2005. We'll continue to work in solidarity with our partners in Palestine until they achieve liberation and return. The PCUSA notes GE Aerospace's role in Israel's war, as well as its role in manufacturing engines used by the Saudi Royal Air Force in its war on Yemen. The Presbyterian Church USA this week boldly chose to stand with our Palestinian siblings and divest from two companies who are grossly enabling the genocide in Gaza and who refuse to change their behavior, Reverend Ron Shivy, co-moderator at the PJN, told the New Arab. The institution also highlighted Palantir's partnership with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, or in some places known as murdering sacks of shit, in deporting people amid a nationwide crackdown on migrants, as well as aiding the Israeli military in helping to determine who to kill in Gaza. The companies were chosen due to their role in human rights violations in the U.S., Palestine, India, Egypt, Yemen, and Saudi Arabia. Hey, Jamar. Happy Friday to you, boss. Hope you're doing well. We have a responsibility as people of faith to leverage any powers and privileges we have to make this a more just and peaceful world for our siblings, including Israelis who are sacrificing their own humanity by carrying out this genocide. Reverend Marietta Macy, co-moderator of PJN, told the New Arab. Reverend Macy, who called the divestment a step in the right direction, said a message needs to be sent to the U.S. government and to U.S. companies that we are not going to roll over and let them turn our home into an imprisoning surveillance state. I hope this divestment inspires others to act and reminds those who feel alone as American Christians that our collective power is stronger than we know, Reverend Macy added. We also need to send a message to our own government and to U.S. companies that we are not going to roll over and let them turn our home into an imprisoning surveillance state. I already just said that. The vote comes after 2 years of meetings by PCUSA's Committee on Mission Responsibility through Investment The PCUSA was the first major institution in the world to divest from companies profiting from the Israeli occupation of Palestinian territory, including divesting from HP, Motorola, and Caterpillar in 2014 and Israeli bonds in 2024. The institution also declared Israel to be an apartheid state in 2022. So good on the Presbyterian Church. Love to see it. You hate to see it because it's a kind of a necessity, but it's good to see that, that they are more and more of these churches and organizations are coming out and calling a spade, that Israel is an apartheid state. Case in point, at least 21,000 children killed in Gaza after 1,000 days of war, Save the Children says. 21,000 children. At least 21,000 children have been confirmed killed in Gaza during 1,000 days of war, while hundreds of thousands more have been displaced and deprived of education, Save the Children said on Thursday. Marking the 1,000th day of the war, the aid agency said children continue to dream of peace despite losing their homes, schools, and sense of safety, not to mention their own lives. Every day for the past 1,000 days, the world has failed 1 million children in Gaza by not intervening to stop the killing and maiming of children, said Save the Children's regional director for the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe, Ahmad Ahandawi. The organization said at least 21,000 children have been confirmed killed during the war, though the true toll is likely higher because many remain buried under the rubble. It said more than 800,000 children, about 80% of Gaza's child population, have been displaced, while Gaza's 625,000 school-aged children have missed 3 years of formal education. Children who spoke to Save the Children described living in constant fear while holding on to hopes for a better future. We could die at any moment. I hope the war stops for us, said Amani, age 14. I hope the war stops so that I can continue my education in Gaza and live my rights as a human like any girl in other countries. There are many children in Gaza whose voices are not heard. Yeah. At this point, you could probably just say whatever the official count is, go start and just multiply it by 10. That would probably be the more accurate of it. Another 14-year-old, Bassan, said, "My wish is for the war to stop, for every one of us to return to their home, and for our lives to return to how they were." These kids are considered Hamas by these evil psychopaths. The humanitarian situation also continues to worsen, with an estimated 245,000 children at risk or affected by malnutrition because humanitarian aid remains limited, the organization said. And who controls the aid going into Gaza? That's right, the psychopaths. Save the Children cited a recent UN Commission of Inquiry report alleging that Israeli authorities and security forces deliberately targeted Palestinian children, resulting in allegations of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes in Gaza. The organization called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, accountability for crimes against children, and the suspension of arms transfers to Israel. The ceasefire, Israel will never do that. They'll never stop until they're stopped. Although a ceasefire was reached, they should put that in quotes. Although a ceasefire was reached in October 2025, Israel has continued its attacks on the Gaza Strip. Overall, the war has claimed, we'll say, more than 730,000 lives and destroyed the enclave that would take years to build. So, yeah, good on the Presbyterian Church. More, please. And you're starting to see the tide turn. You're starting to see it flip a little bit, right? The needle is starting to move, despite the propaganda efforts of Israel and their shithead enablers. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, 54 Palestinian children have been killed in were not isolated incidents. Israeli forces killed 54 Palestinian children in the West Bank in 2025, according to a report by Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem, which linked the deaths to an increasingly permissive open fire policy and military conduct in the occupied territory. The report also pointed to what it described as a broader dehumanization of Palestinians and a climate of public impunity surrounding the killings, calling 2025 one of the deadliest years for Palestinian minors in the West Bank over the past 2 decades. The widespread killings are not the result of isolated mistakes, but of policy, B'Tselem spokesperson Yair Devere told Arab News. This includes the authorization to shoot at Palestinians suspected of throwing stones, even when they pose no danger to soldiers. Yeah, it's all part of the humiliation ritual, too. They're not murdering them, they're humiliating them. How dare you throw a rock at me? You're wearing like Kevlar and helmets, you fucks. Israel routinely invokes security arguments, labeling those who are killed as terrorists. But we're talking about 54 children killed in a single year, including infants and very young children. Many of these children were killed in their own homes, in their family's car, on a football pitch, or while on their way to visit a family member. This is not about security, and it damn sure isn't about self-defense. I think they're starting to drop that excuse now that they knew the self-defense shit wasn't going to work when they were murdering children. According to B'Tselem, only 2 of the 54 children and teenagers killed were armed with firearms when they were shot. The organization said that at least 21 were not involved in clashes, while 7 were killed in airstrikes. B'Tselem said that it has documented a sharp increase in Palestinian deaths in the West Bank since October 2023. Nearly a quarter of the more than 1,000 Palestinians killed during that period have been children. We are seeing a growing number of incidents in which soldiers shoot and kill Palestinians who pose no threat to them, Devere said. In many cases, the killings were captured on camera. And, of course, when they were captured on camera, they were spread around the world. And that's why you're starting to see Israel's reputation go in the toilet. For those that were adamant supporters of Israel, that is. He also pointed to public statements by senior Israeli military officials as evidence of what he's described as a shift in military conduct. Not only does the system provide full backing for these killings, but the military commander responsible for the West Bank has publicly boasted that Israel is killing Palestinians in the West Bank at levels not seen since 1967, he said. The report is based on investigations conducted by B'Tselem's Palestinian field researchers across the West Bank. According to the organization, researchers visited the scenes of incidents. Hang on a second. According to the organization, researchers visited the scenes of incidents, collected eyewitness testimony, gathered video footage where available, and conducted detailed investigations into each case. The organization also raised concerns about delays in medical treatment for wounded minors. According to the report, soldiers delayed or prevented medical teams and residents from reaching injured children in nearly 1/4 of the documented cases. And don't forget the double taps. When they go to help the people, they attack again to get the helpers. One such case involved Mohammed Halak from Hebron. Mohammed was a 9-year-old boy who was playing football with his friends when soldiers entering the village shot him from 100 meters away, even though he posed no danger whatsoever, Devere said. The soldiers also delayed his evacuation, causing a delay of more than 15 minutes before he reached the hospital. B'Tselem said that Israeli forces have not provided explanations for restricting access to wounded children in such cases. The report also questions the effectiveness of accountability mechanisms surrounding the killings. In none of the cases documented in the report has an indictment been filed against those responsible for the killings, including cases involving young children and infants. While some incidents have reportedly been subject to internal military investigation, Devere argued that such processes rarely lead to meaningful outcomes. The report also highlights Israel's policy of withholding the bodies of Palestinians killed by its forces. As of last month, Israel was holding the bodies of 18 of the 54 children documented in the report. Yeah. The killing of children. I don't have kids, but that doesn't mean I don't like kids. I love kids. I think they're great. You know, it just, the fact that Israel is doing this doesn't surprise me anymore, because we know what evil people, the propaganda that these people are fed from birth, that are causing them to be these evil people. It's the fact that outsiders who have seen evidence of their murdering of children still support them. Shame on you, to say the least. You know what? Go fuck yourself. How about that? Fucking supporters of genocide. There's a special place in hell for all you assholes. Of course, Israel's always trying to keep war going, because that's what they know best. Israeli jets breached Iranian airspace to kill negotiators during ceasefire talks. Yeah, those infants were throwing rocks. They sure were. From the womb, too. Yeah. Yeah, and they don't know what cease means. If anything, they should cease to exist. So the Israeli army flew fighter jets into Iran on a mission to assassinate the country's top negotiators as they were returning from high-level negotiations with Washington earlier this year, according to the New York Times. The report claims Washington scrambled to thwart the attack and urged regional states to warn Tehran of the plot. Wow. It's like saying, yeah, my crazy ex-girlfriend or my crazy girlfriend, she's a psycho. Watch out. She may bring a knife to the party. That kind of thing. Fearful that an Israeli assassination effort would doom the negotiations, the U.S. went so far as to ask other countries in the region to warn Iran about the possibility Israel could target the two officials. That's what they told the New York Times. The Trump administration learned around that time that at least Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf was on an Israeli targeting list and asked Israel to refrain. The sources went on to say, please don't assassinate these people. The oil prices are sky high. We really need to get this cleared up. The report says Tehran sought U.S. guarantees that Israel would not target its negotiators during talks. The sources added that Pakistani fighter jets escorted the Iranian airplanes carrying a delegation of more than 70 Iranians from the border of Iran to Islamabad and back again when the session was over. According to the report, Ghalibaf and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi made an emergency landing after diverting their aircraft to Mashhad during the return flight from Islamabad in April. This came after Iranian authorities detected Israeli jets entering Iranian airspace. The delegation completed its journey by land, the report adds, implying that the Israeli plot would have resulted in the mid-air assassination of Ghalibaf and Araghchi. Iran has taken precautions aimed at making it more difficult for Israel to strike at senior officials, according to the Times. Israeli embassy officials in Washington declined to comment on the matter. I wonder. In late May, sources cited by Capital and Empire said Tel Aviv was pressuring Washington to assassinate Ghalibaf and resume full-scale war with strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure. Israel has targeted negotiators in the past, including in the latest war on Iran. The U.S., which led the war against Iran directly alongside Israel, did nothing to stop those killings. In fact, they did some killing of their own by bombing a school full of young schoolgirls. In early April, a strike hit the home of top Iranian foreign policy advisor and former diplomat Kamal Karazi, who was said to be involved in back-channel talks at the beginning of the war. That strike killed Karazi's wife instantly. The official ended up succumbing to his wounds later. Another U.S.-backed Israeli strike in March assassinated Iranian Supreme National Security Council chief Ali Larijani, who had also served as a negotiator and was involved in the talks. Iran responded with a cluster warhead ballistic missile attack on Tel Aviv. That attack they should have never stopped because, reasons. You know the reasons. You know the thing. You can do it. So, speaking of Iran, Iran warns U.S. and Zionist regime against attacks on Khamenei funeral, or Khamenei, depending on how you pronounce it. I've heard it both ways. Iran has warned the U.S. and Israel against any attacks during the upcoming funeral processions for late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed in the opening strikes of the war, as Tehran prepares for days of heavily secured mourning ceremonies. Funeral processions for Khamenei are set to begin in Tehran tomorrow, July 4th, and conclude on July 9th with his burial in his hometown of Mashhad, with additional ceremonies planned in Qom and neighboring Iraq. We warn the enemies of Iran, especially the U.S. and the Zionist regime, aka Israel, to avoid any miscalculation and to think about the harsh retaliation our armed forces would make to any threat and aggression against our country, Ali Abdullahi, commander of the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, said on Thursday. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz claimed on Monday that Iranian Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei is also marked for death like his father. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned on Wednesday that Tehran would deliver an immediate and powerful response to any threat against its people or leadership. Hey, CBC, did I see you before? If I didn't, hello. The warnings come as indirect U.S.-Iran talks have reportedly been put on pause until after Khamenei's burial. The latest round of discussions in Doha this week focused on maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz and the release of frozen Iranian funds, but there was no sign of major progress toward a lasting peace. Israel has made targeted killings of Iranian leaders a central part of its war strategy from the outset. The conflict began on February 28th with an Israeli strike that killed Khamenei and several other top officials based on U.S. intelligence. Israel later killed several figures Washington had hoped to negotiate with, including Ali Larijani, Iran's top national security office official, and Kamal Karazi, a former foreign minister, according to the report. While Trumpy himself has repeatedly bragged about the decapitation strikes, American officials feared Israel could similarly try to assassinate Iran's top negotiators, Araghchi and Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, which we told you about. In June, Washington and Tehran reached a framework agreement aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz and setting the outline for follow-up talks on Iran's nuclear program, sanctions relief, frozen assets, and a longer-term settlement. Israel has fucked up this process more times than it can count, arguing that the agreement fails to achieve its war aims. Which means the greater Israel project, they got to get that land, and Iran's in the way. And there's the rest of it. They basically said, don't screw around with us during our time of mourning, because you know what we can do, and we'll do it again. Bitches. I added the bitches part. That was an ad lib, just so you know. They may have said bitches, they just didn't say it officially. So we turn our attention now to Iraq. Iraq escalates fight against corruption with focus on illicit wealth. How about this? Are they going after the billionaires in Iraq? How utterly delicious. This guy looks serious. Iraqi authorities are expanding a sweeping anti-corruption campaign beyond traditional embezzlement cases to investigate unexplained wealth, money laundering, and extensive property holdings amassed by senior officials in what the government says is its most far-reaching effort yet to dismantle entrenched corruption networks. The widening investigation follows the arrest this week of dozens of current and former officials, lawmakers, and other public figures accused of financial and administrative corruption after testimony from former Deputy Oil Minister Adnan al-Jumaili. I almost said Jumanji. I swear to God, I almost said it. Jumaili led investigators to additional suspects. Officials say the campaign has evolved from targeting individual corruption cases into a broader effort to trace illicit wealth accumulated over more than 2 decades since the 2003 overthrow of Saddam Hussein. Munir Haddad, legal advisor to Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi, said investigators were increasingly focusing on unexplained fortunes held by public officials under legal provisions requiring them to account for the origin of their wealth. The investigations include the application of Iraq's "where did you get this" principle, which allows prosecutors to examine whether assets accumulated by public servants are consistent with their declared income. We need to do this over here. We need to do that. But we need to Americanize it. Like, where the fuck you get that? They'd be like, I don't know. America, capitalism. Authorities say cases involving unjustified wealth may constitute offenses, including illicit enrichment and money laundering, in addition to corruption and abuse of public office. Interesting. Look for democracy to come back to Iraq after this. Haddad said investigators had uncovered officials who individually owned more than 50 properties, either registered in their own names or in those of relatives. Discoveries he described as illustrating the scale of wealth accumulated through alleged corruption. Gee, you think you overthrow a country and then you install a puppet government or some sort of administrator, and then after that you install the puppet government, and then all this corruption. How'd that happen? The assets and sums of money being uncovered are beyond reason and logic, he said, estimating that public funds lost to corruption since 2003 exceeded $2 trillion. That's the same amount the Pentagon said was missing before 9/11. Remember that? Remember that old children's tale from the sea? While Iraqi officials have long pledged to combat corruption, previous campaigns often faltered amid political divisions and accusations of selective enforcement, and probably because they were on the take themselves. See, that's how that works. The current drive has been presented by the government as fundamentally different, with authorities insisting that investigations will continue regardless of the political status of those involved. There are no red lines or time limits, Haddad said, adding that daily security operations were continuing to locate suspects and prevent the destruction of evidence. According to Iraqi officials, confessions by principal suspects have enabled investigators to identify wider networks linking officials across multiple state institutions. So they're getting these lower level people and starting to get them to turn on the higher ups. Some suspects attempted to flee abroad or sought refuge in the Kurdistan region before being detained, Haddad said, adding that authorities in the Kurdistan regional government had cooperated by handing over 8 wanted individuals to the federal government. Investigators have not disclosed how many additional arrests are expected, saying new evidence continues to emerge as financial records and witness testimony are examined. How long does this go? Yeah, but that's basically the gist of it there. If you want to read the whole article, I'm going to have it on my Substack, ExtraBulla.substack.com, probably about 20 to 30 minutes after the show's over. So you can read the rest of it. But yeah, so going after corruption in Iraq. That's interesting. I'd love to see that happen here in the United States. Speaking of corrupt, let's go to Syria. Syria's self-appointed president handpicks final 70 parliament members. There he is right there in his nice little suit. Following months of delays, Syrian authorities yesterday, July 2nd, released the names of 70 legislators handpicked by Syria's self-appointed president Ahmad al-Shara for a transitional parliament, clearing the way for the assembly to convene next week. The new legislatures will join 140 parliament members chosen last September in a process that was also tightly controlled by Shara, the former al-Qaeda and Islamic State commander who came to power in Damascus in December 2024 with U.S., Israeli, and Turkish backing. The head of Syria's electoral committee, Mohammed Taha al-Ahmad, said on Thursday that the new 210-member legislature will hold its first meeting on Monday. The parliament's new members will be sworn in, while a presidential council for the legislative body will be elected. The new parliament will have a 30-month term, what is that, 2.5 years, and work on a new elections law while preparing the ground for a popular vote in the next elections, according to Ahmad. The parliament is also tasked with amending laws and writing a new constitution for Syria. I thought that was Twiggy for a second. Remember that chick? She was like some sort of, back in the 70s. Anyway. Turkey, one of Shara's main foreign backers, stands to exert significant influence over the parliament. Turkey Today observes that former Syrian refugees in Turkey make up a quarter of the initial 140 members of parliament selected last year. Turkish institutions engaged on all levels with Syrian oppositional figures who are now the vast majority of parliamentarians, the paper added. Among the 70 new appointees is Hassan Soufan, who was the head of Ahrar al-Sham, an al-Qaeda-affiliated extremist group that fought as part of the 14-year CIA-backed insurgency against former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government. According to a tally by the New Arab, the newly appointed members include 5 from Idlib, 6 from Homs, 7 from Hasaka, 4 from Daraa, 3 from Raqqa, 5 from Damascus, 2 from Quneitra, 6 from Deir ez-Zor, 4 from Latakia, 5 from rural Damascus, 14 from Aleppo, 2 from Tartus, 5 from Hama, 2 from Suwaida, and a partridge in a pear tree. Among those from Suwaida is Druze warlord Laith Balos, widely considered a traitor among Syria's Druze community. Balos sided with Shara's force as they massacred hundreds of members of the minority religious community in July last year. 2 Alawites were also appointed, raising their total to 5. Syrian forces massacred some 1,600 Alawite civilians in March last year. My God in heaven, someone has conjured Willie Bragg. What's up, Willie? How you doing, buddy? Good afternoon to you over there on the East Coast. Stay cool, brother. It's supposed to be hot as balls over there if it isn't already. While maintaining secular institutions such as Parliament, Syria is unofficially governed by extremist Sunni Muslim religious figures known as sheikhs, who are embedded within government institutions and public service departments, including police stations, municipalities, and the judiciary. As a result, Syria's Alawite, Druze, and Shia communities have few rights and are often kidnapped, murdered, and imprisoned with impunity. Of the 70 appointments, 15 were female, bringing the total to 21 women in parliament after 6 were chosen last year. Bassam al-Kuwaiti, leader of the Syrian Liberal Party, told the New Arab that the lack of women and appointment of unknown names suggested the selection process was not democratic. The whole process went without proper consultations with the Syrian public and without a national dialogue. Therefore, it was designed to serve one party only, he said. Rahaf al-Duli, an assistant professor at Middle East and North African Studies at Lancaster University, told New Arab that the parliament is likely to rubber stamp Shara's decisions in many cases. I doubt the independence of this council on some issues, he stated. Yeah, so basically they're there, and I guess they're there for 2.5 years till they actually let the public decide who their leaders are going to be. Yeah, talk about out of the frying pan into the fire. You get rid of Bashar al-Assad, and then you get this guy in. Yeah, let's bring ISIS in. Or IS? What could possibly go wrong? We now go to Russia and Ukraine news. Yes, that's Vidanya. Russia launches largest attack on Kiev, killing at least 21. This is from antiwar.com. Specifically news.antiwar.com. Be sure to check them out. They do a lot of good news aggregation, their own journalism as well. Good people over there too, trying to get the word out. So, oh, sweet. Dame Leslie Lawson, widely known by the nickname Twiggy, born September 19, 1949. Aspen, Middlesex, England. Yes. She was also in the Blues Brothers. She had a cameo in the Blues Brothers. The good news is I don't have to purchase something that starts with an O, starts with an O and ends with a C for weight loss illegally anymore. Okay. Will he be losing that weight? Like I'd be losing viewers. What? All right, back to the countdown here. So Russia launched this is from Dave DeCamp. Russia launched a massive missile and drone bombardment on Kiev on Thursday, which the Russian Foreign Ministry described as the largest attack on the Ukrainian capital and said was a response to Ukrainian drone attacks that have killed civilians inside Russia. According to Ukrainian officials, the Russian bombardment killed at least 21 civilians in Kiev and injured more than 90, and children were among the casualties. Of course, they always are. The AP reported that the attack lasted for 11 hours and about 50,000 Ukrainians took shelter in subway stations. Ukraine's Air Force said that Russian forces fired 74 missiles and 496 drones at Kiev. They claimed that most were intercepted, while 25 ballistic missiles and 12 drones struck 33 locations in the Ukrainian capital. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed the attack targeted enterprises of the military-industrial sector, fuel and energy located in Kiev, though photos show apartment buildings were also hit during the bombardment. The ministry said the attack was launched in retaliation for Ukraine's terrorist attacks on civilian facilities on Russian territory. In recent months, Ukraine has dramatically ramped up its drone attacks on Russia, which have targeted oil infrastructure and killed many civilians. A Russian Foreign Ministry official said on Tuesday that Ukrainian drone attacks over the past week have killed 42 Russian civilians, including 2 children, and on the same day, a 6-month-old baby was killed during a drone attack on the Moscow region. Ukraine's drone attacks are known to be supported by NATO and the U.S., which provide intelligence for the operations, meaning they always risk an escalation between Russia and NATO. Yeah. Yes, indeed. I think Ukraine is using some sort of inexpensive drones that they've been using and been highly effective against Russia. But yeah, here we go. Russia's starting to step it up, their retaliations now. Speaking of arms companies, I guess we were talking about that earlier. Birmingham University accused of weakening restrictions on investing in arms companies. Birmingham, not to be confused with Birmingham, Alabama. That's another Birmingham. I've been there. I've been to 5 Points there. I had the Long Island iced tea. Knocked me out for like a couple of days. It was great. The University of Birmingham has been accused of significantly weakening its restrictions on investing in weapons companies. The British University has replaced a policy committed to minimize investments in arms, tobacco, and alcohol companies with investment principles that require the consideration of financially, material, environmental, social, and governance factors, or ESG factors. The university's responsible investment policy adopted in 2022 committed to incorporating ESG issues into investment analysis and decision-making processes. Investment managers were required to give consideration to investment exclusion criteria, including companies where revenues exceed 10% of revenues with it, activities connected to weapon systems, as well as companies manufacturing whole weapon systems, cluster munitions, and anti-personnel landmines. Also excluded were tobacco, oil, and mining companies. The university further said it would seek to minimize indirect investment in companies which would fall below the ESG standards and exclusion principle. However, the university's updated investment policy adopted in June and seen by Middle East Eye, this outfit here, does not contain those exclusions. What? That sounds like Boulder Dash. Instead, it says financially material ESG factors should be considered in manager selection, monitoring, and stewardship. It also says the university has appointed the bank, J.P. Morgan, as its outsourced chief investment officer, or their OCIO. How about that? The policy requires the OCIO to comply with UK legal prohibitions relating to anti-personnel mines and cluster munitions, and UK obligations that implement prohibitions on chemical and biological weapons. Sorry. Got a little bit of blockage there. The policy says the university expects compliance with sanctions regimes and legal prohibitions beyond that baseline where investments have material exposure to elevated risk activities. The university expects the OCIO to be able to explain the investment rationale, the controls in place, and the stewardship approach used to manage the relevant ESG risks. Antonia Lestrade, that's, isn't that Anne Rice, Interview with a Vampire? Sorry, no, that's Lestat, never mind. The president of the Guild of Students, the university's recognized student union, said, "This sends a devastating message to students and staff who believe our university should uphold human rights and invest in education, not the arms trade. Students voted for their university to strengthen its ethical standards, not make it easier to profit from companies connected to armed conflict." A University of Birmingham spokesperson said, "We have not made any changes to our investment portfolio due to the change in policy, and our responsible investment expectations are not being lowered. We still set the objectives and constraints for our portfolios, while the outsourced chief investment officer manages day-to-day decisions within them." The spokesperson added, "Our updated policy strengthens how we explain, oversee, and evidence that approach, moving from a fixed list of exclusions to clear principles-based expectations covering legal compliance, ESG integration, stewardship, voting climate, human rights, and governance. We've been a United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment, or UNPRI, signatory since December 2019, and this update simply better reflects our delegated pool-funded investment models work in practice." The previous restrictions on investing in outright weapons companies did not prevent the University of Birmingham from partnering with Rolls-Royce, which mostly manufactures civilian equipment, but also makes military equipment, including for the, guess who? The Israeli army. Oh, Rolls-Royce. Birmingham also joined 4 other universities in entering a strategic partnership with BAE Systems, Britain's largest arms company, in 2019. BAE Systems manufactures components for F-35 fighter jets used by the Israeli military in Gaza. During Israel's genocide in Gaza, some universities have tightened restrictions on investing in arms manufacturers in response to student protests. For example, Queen's University Belfast announced it would divest from all investments in Israel back in June last year. But not all universities have adopted the same approach. The University of Birmingham took student protesters to court over their pro-Gaza encampment on the university campus in July 2024. Shocking, I know. The London School of Economics evicted its student protesters from a pro-Gaza encampment that same year. Middle East Eye revealed that last October that the University of Oxford was indirectly invested in at least 49 companies flagged by the United Nations and human rights organizations for their involvement in illegal Israeli activities in the occupied Palestinian territories. Middle East Eye further revealed in February that the University of Cambridge's endowment fund had invested more than 140 million pounds, or about $189 million, in a fund that owned shares in companies linked to Israeli human rights violations, including Palantir Technologies, Caterpillar, and GE Aerospace. Look at GE Aerospace all up in there. Yeah, GE Aerospace. Isn't that crazy? The British government itself imposed a partial arms embargo on Israel in September 2024, but the government also greenlit $169 million in military goods to Israel, including 8,630 separate munitions exports in the category of bombs, grenades, torpedoes, mines, missiles, and other similar munitions. Yeah. And the numbers of Israeli forces have killed, of course, not the official numbers there. Yes, indeed. How's everybody doing? Let's take a little quick break. Everybody good? You guys staying cool out there? It's I got fan going here because it's not as bad as it was yesterday. It's like 96 here. It was crazy. Delicious. All right, back to the countdown. So staying in Europe, Google loses fight against record $4.1 billion Euro EU antitrust fund. Yay, Christmas. What are you doing? Stop that. Alphabet's Google on Thursday lost its long-running fight against a record EU antitrust fine for using its Android mobile operating system to block rivals, a court ruling which is seen as likely to boost Europe's crackdown on big tech. The European Commission, the bloc's antitrust regulator, has fined Google billions of euros over several antitrust violations in the last 15 years, but the case is dragged through the courts as the search giant filed appeals. The Android fine was imposed in 2018, a year after the Commission fined Google 2.42 billion euros, about $2.77 billion, for using its shopping comparison service to gain an unfair advantage over small rivals. Google lost an appeal against that in 2021. The appeal for this case lasted longer. The Commission fined Google 4.34 billion euros for agreements which forced phone manufacturers to pre-install Google Search, the Chrome browser, and the Google Play app on their Android devices and prevented them from using rival systems. A lower tribunal subsequently trimmed the fine to 4.1 billion euros in 2022. Google then appealed to the Luxembourg-based Court of Justice of the European Union, Europe's highest. The court sided with the EU antitrust enforcer. The appeal brought by Google and its parent company Alphabet against the judgment of the General Court is dismissed, thereby confirming the penalty imposed for Google Search's abuse of a dominant position in the context of the Android operating system, the judges said. A Google spokesperson said that the judgment failed to take into account its investment to ensure Android remains open, interoperable, and free. We were just trying to do the thing. In any event, we adapted our agreements to comply with the initial decision back in 2018, and we remain focused on continued innovation and openness for our users, partners, and developers, Google cackled. Google has racked up close to 11 billion euros in European fines in the last decade for various antitrust infringements. While the record antitrust fine is less than 3% of Alphabet's annual profit, the loss could embolden other regulators and companies to chase Google for damages. So basically, it's like, there's blood in the water, boys. Get your lawyers. Let's do this. The loss of the shopping comparison case had led to a slew of lawsuits against Google by companies claiming damages worth billions of dollars across half a dozen countries. A Swedish court ordered Google to pay about $1.5 billion in damages to PriceRunner, the price comparison business now owned by Klarna, on Wednesday. For Google, more fines look likely in the near future for allegedly favoring its own services and products in search results, and for practices related to its App Store both of which fall under the Digital Markets Act aimed at reining in the power of big tech. The case is C-738/22 Google and Alphabet versus Commission. The $1 equals 0.8734 euros. That's nice that they put that in there. So good on them. Yeah, more please. Let's get more lawsuits against Google. I'm super serial when I say that. I'm super serial. So we told you about boycotting Palantir earlier. Well, Spain is getting on board with that, as Spain blacklists Palantir over domestic security concerns. Spain's government launched a blacklist of CIA-backed Palantir technologies from public and private state-controlled entities, Spanish media reported on Wednesday. The Spanish Prime Minister's office issued directives to companies under the State Society of Industrial Participations, the SEPI, to cease future contracting due to security concerns and worries regarding the vulnerability of sensitive state data. You think? That guy, who's the guy with the crazy hair? Kind of looks like Rick from Rick and Morty, the guy from Palantir. He was saying some crazy shit. That probably scared some people off. The ban targets organizations handling high-level communications and military intelligence, including Indra, Telefonica, and the shipbuilder Navantia. Specific casualties of the policy include a Navantia project nearing completion and a negotiated partnership with the Guardia Civil that was vetoed by Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska. Despite these restrictions, an over $18 million contract with the Armed Forces Intelligence Center, the CIFAS, remains active until November, while Army and Navy leadership have urged Defense Minister Margarita Robles to renew the deal. The Spanish Prime Minister's office has yet to make an official determination. Spain's stance aligns with broader European trends. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu announced the termination of intelligence contracts with the firm last month. Additionally, German secret services have shifted toward competitors such as Chaos Vision. Man, you know you're bad if you're somebody's like ditching you for Chaos Vision. In London, Mayor Sadiq Khan halted a nearly $67 million Metropolitan Police deal, stating it represented a clear and serious breach of procurement rules. To bolster domestic data sovereignty, Spain is redirecting funds toward local technology, including a $131 million investment in the Catalan firm OpenChip. Madrid's measures coincide with diplomatic friction between Spain Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and the U.S. government, as Palantir leadership, including Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, that's that psychopath I was trying to think of, Alex Karp. He's like Rick from Rick and Morty on PCP, maintain close ties to the U.S. President Donald Trump. Karp, the CEO of Palantir, recently publicly declared himself the most supportive CEO of Israel, claiming that the country is on the side of good. Good riddance would be more likely, and expressing pride in his company's support of the state. In a 2025 UN report, Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, I believe that's Albanese, that's how you say her name, easy like Sunday morning, identified Palantir Technologies, founded by the CIA's venture capital arm In-Q-Tel, as one of 48 corporate actors aiding an economy of genocide through its involvement in Israel's genocide in Gaza. The report states that the company expanded its assistance after October 2023 by providing AI systems such as Lavender and Gospel to automatically process data and generate battlefield kill lists. Reuters reported in March of this year that the Pentagon has designated Palantir's Maven smart system as an official program of record, ensuring the long-term integration of this weapons targeting AI across the entire U.S. military. U.S. Deputy Secretary of Bullshit, Steve Feinberg, described the system as the cornerstone of U.S. strategy, as it was heavily relied upon during the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran in February. CENTCOM reported more than 13,000 strikes on Iranian targets by April 9th, with Maven generating over 3,000 targeting options within a single 24-hour period, despite a target classification accuracy of around 60% compared to 84% for human analysts. Yeah, good job there, Sparky. The campaign included a strike on Shajare Tayyebe Primary School. That's the one we were talking about in Manab, which killed at least 175 civilians, at least 160 of whom were schoolgirls between the ages of 7 and 12. My apologies for butchering that. I always had trouble with that name, so I apologize. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, responded on March 31st by naming Palantir among 18 U.S. technology companies whose facilities in West Asia it declared legitimate targets. Palantir's reputation for gross human rights violation extends into the U.S. domestic sphere, as the CIA-linked technology firm has been using Medicaid and other government health data to help ICE generate deportation target profiles, according to a January report by Fortune. Palantir. As they say in Spain, no bueno. El Diablo. So now we're going to get in a couple of sciencey, some sciencey stuff for you here. Rescue mission launches to save NASA telescope that's fallen back to Earth. Oh, shit. Boom. A three-armed spacecraft rocketed into orbit today to rescue a NASA telescope that's in danger of crashing back to Earth. Skylab. Remember Skylab? All you old people out there, you know, there was jokes about, yeah, you could get this spray and put on it. It's a Skylab repellent. I remember that. It was, I think that was like a radio gig or something, a radio joke. Northrop Grumman launched Catalyst Space Technologies Link spacecraft from the Marshall Islands in the Pacific. Really? They're launching stuff from the Mars. Isn't that place just like radioactive as hell from all the bomb testing? Anyway, the Pegasus rocket blasted off from the belly of a modified airplane, putting Link on course to reach and capture NASA's Swift Observatory in about a month. I guess it's swiftly heading towards plane. Chuck, why aren't you out there doing that? Why aren't you helping these people out? You're up there. Launched in 2004, Swift is sinking faster than ever because of recent solar storms. NASA is paying $30 million for Catalyst to capture the telescope and boost its orbit so it can continue tracking some of the biggest explosions in the universe, like gamma ray bursts and exploding stars. If all goes well, Swift could be back scanning the cosmos by September. Observations are currently on hold to preserve the telescope's orbit as long as possible. NASA's Hubble telescope could be a candidate for a similar salvage operation in a few years. It's also slipping in altitude because of increased atmospheric drag caused by the sun's outbursts. The 1.6 ton or 1.4 metric ton Swift currently is circling 224 miles above Earth. Catalyst aims to raise the telescope's altitude by 150 miles back to where it all began. Link's thrusters will fire to boost Swift slowly so there's no heavy jostling. I don't know if you remember, this is very obscure, but I'll put this out here. Back in the 80s, Andy Griffith had a TV show called Salvage One, where he was this guy, he owned a junkyard, and he built his own rocket ship to go up to salvage satellites that were broken or what have you. And the government didn't like that. But the show, I think, lasted like 4 episodes, and they said, that's a wrap. We should probably stop this. And from Kill It With Fire news, for the first time, scientists say they built a synthetic cell from scratch. Here we go. We're gonna get those the fleshy Cylons from Battlestar Galactica now. Scientists from the University of Minnesota say they have created the first ever synthetic cell built entirely from scratch and seen it go through entire life cycle, including reproduction. or the evangelicals on this. This is the most fascinating and important thing I've ever done in my work, and the realization that it's actually happening was rather slow to sink in. Synthetic biologist Kate Adamala, a co-lead on the project, told Science Alert, we've replicated in chemistry what only used to be possible in biology, the complete set of behaviors of a cell. It proves that the most fundamental functions of life, like growth and replication, do not need a mysterious magical spark, she says. Uh-oh. The project is called Spud Cell, and yeah, the project is called Spud Cell, and it has a genome of just 90 kilobase pairs, KPB. For comparison, the human genome is about 3 million KPB, and biologists previously assumed that a living cell would require at least 113 KPB of genetic data to function properly. According to Adamala and her colleagues, Spud Cell appears to stretch these limits, though their research is yet to be formally published and has not yet been peer-reviewed. But it has been shared on the website of a new nonprofit bioengineering institution Adamala helped found called Biotic. When Adamala first saw the results, she was in shock. I was very happy, relieved, and a bit suspicious because I'm always double and triple checking results, she told Science Alert. By the time all the controls and their controls and additional controls were done, controls, it wasn't a surprise anymore. According to Science magazine, Spud Cell has met some hurdles in publication. Apparently, one reviewer at Cell, a prestigious science journal, said the project was not real biology. That might be partially because Spud Cell doesn't quite meet the requirements for real life. It can't replicate itself over many generations, and so it also can't evolve. Give them time. Give them time. I think biologists might not appreciate the significance of the chemical engineering simplicity of minimal cell, Adamala explained to Science Alert. Spud Cell doesn't look like much if you're grading it on the scale of natural biological systems. It's a very slow growth and replication cycle and high demand metabolism. Each artificial spud cell consists of a liposome, a sphere of fats that mimics the outer membrane of a real cell, wrapped around 7 plasmids, small units of DNA often found in bacteria that are a bit different from the chromosomes you might be familiar with. Together, these 7 plasmids make up the spud cell genome, all 90 kpb of it. The cell is also equipped with an inbuilt protein expression system, which translates the DNA's genetic constructions into action. That's what allows the cell to turn the nutrients it absorbs from the surrounding liquid into useful materials and enable cell division. According to the researchers, the spud cell system is capable of selection, genome replication, growth, resource acquisition via feeding, genetically encoded division, and the takeover of the human race. They're coming. If you've never seen Battlestar Galactica, the reboot, you should probably watch that. If you're into sci-fi, that's some good stuff. So, anywho, that's all the news that's fit to print. We're going to get to the old lying bullshit here coming up. And, protesting in the United States. Freedom. This Freedom Weekend, isn't it? Our independence. Yet, people are going to jail for multiple decades for doing what they're supposed to be doing in our free country. What?
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media publish things they are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
All right, 7 more sentenced to prison over protest outside Texas detention center. 7 more people were sentenced to prison on Wednesday after a shooting outside a Texas immigration detention center that wounded a police officer and has left many protesters facing decades behind bars. All but one of the defendants sentenced in Fort Worth courtrooms pleaded guilty to charges related to the shooting outside the Prairieland Detention Center near Dallas last July 4th, a year ago. They were sentenced to between nearly 2 and 15 years in prison. The final defendant, Inez Soto, who pleaded not guilty but was convicted of charges relating to providing material support to terrorists. We'll put that in quotes. Riot and planning to use explosives in the form of fireworks, was sentenced to 50 years. The same judges have already handed down harsher sentences to 8 people who were convicted at trial, including a former Marine reservist who received a 100-year prison term. One of those 8 was Soto's wife, Elizabeth, who also received a 50-year sentence. Those sentenced last week received what was effectively life in prison. Another defendant, Daniel Sanchez Estrada, was sentenced to 30 years despite not even attending the protest. The U.S. federal government charged the protesters with conspiring to ambush a law enforcement officer as part of so-called Antifa, short for the loosely networked anti-fascist movement. Going after the anti-fascists. Isn't that what Hitler did? The government has categorized Antifa as a terrorist threat, even though Antifa is not one organization or group. Yeah, exactly. The First Amendment's terrorism now, folks. In order to make their case, the FBI included political literature found in the defendants' homes. I'm pretty sure that was planted. The case has been closely watched by critics who say the prosecutions could have serious implications for protesters nationwide and First Amendment free speech rights. You think? U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor called the protest an assault on democracy after he got his paycheck from the thing, before he and another judge handed down lengthy prison sentences last week to 8 others who were convicted on terrorism charges. Yeah, terrorism is being loosely defined these days, too. The First Amendment, for one thing. The 6 defendants who did not stand trial had pleaded guilty to providing material support to terrorists. One of them testified at the earlier trial that he spray painted a guard shack and vehicles in the parking lot. You son of a bitch! You should get 1,000 years for that. The protesters' attorneys have insisted there was no planned ambush and that the people who took firearms to the demonstration did so for their own protection. It is Texas, after all. Come on. They argue the gathering was planned as a late-night demonstration with fireworks to show support for immigrants detained inside the facility. Prosecutors told jurors at trial that the group's actions, including bringing firearms, first aid kits, and wearing body armor, signaled nefarious intent. No, they've been to protests before. They know how violent the cops are. Psychos. In interviews with The Guardian, the defendants argued they were exercising their constitutional Second Amendment rights in light of law enforcement violence against anti-ICE protesters and that their first aid kits were meant as a precaution. Benjamin Champagne Song, the former U.S. Marine reservist who was convicted of attempted murder in the shooting, was sentenced to 100 years in prison, and 7 others received prison terms ranging from 30 to 70 years. Some of them, including Song, as well as Elizabeth Soto, has filed notices of appeal, as they should, because that's some bullshit, and they need it. Once they win their appeals, hopefully they'll win their appeals, that could help people be more inclined to get out and protest, right? But now they're saying protesting is terrorism. I guess technically it is if you're terrorizing the status quo and you're terrorizing the people that want to oppress you. Maybe you could say that, but I think these people were just trying to protest and bring awareness to the bullshit that these people were doing. Meanwhile, the CPJ votes to maintain current definition of journalist despite Israeli pressure campaign. So on Wednesday, the board of directors at the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, voted to uphold its definition of a journalist, rejecting claims that a review of its database was intended to lift protections for Palestinian and Lebanese media workers killed by the Israeli military. The board said its policy remains unchanged and continues to recognize journalists working for state-backed outlets or media affiliated with armed groups, provided they are not involved in combat or inciting imminent violence. CPJ Chair Jacob Weisberg dismissed allegations that the organization sought to remove slain Palestinian and Lebanese journalists from its records warning that such claims undermine years of documentation and place reporters covering events on the ground at greater risk. The board also reaffirmed its support for CPJ staff documenting attacks on journalists. The board stands fully with the staff of CPJ, whose difficult daily work of documenting attacks on journalists is today more important than ever, and with all journalists wrongly smeared and maligned for doing their jobs, he stated. The decision comes days after the controversial removal of board member Dr. Nika Soon-Shiong on June 29th. Soon-Shiong linked her abrupt departure to her challenging the board to hold a formal vote on redefining who is a journalist. While the CPJ officially claimed her 5-year term had simply concluded, her removal occurred immediately after she went public with concerns that the organization was folding under political pressure to strip protections from Palestinian reporters. Prior to her departure, Soon-Shiong publicly opposed the proposal and said that the very act of reopening the question of who is a journalist following external political pressure from pro-Israel groups was in itself a betrayal to our colleagues in Gaza who have faced the deadliest conflict for journalists ever recorded. And that's not hyperbole. That's the numbers back that up. Adding that baseless accusations will become more common, not less. CPJ must strive to rise above the fray. She highlighted a glaring double standard within the organization. While Palestinian and Lebanese journalists working for state-backed outlets faced potential exclusion, Western and Israeli journalists, including those who have served directly in the Israeli military, remain protected without scrutiny. On June 25th, the CPJ announced the full review of its database of journalists killed during the Israeli genocide of Palestinians in Gaza after, quote, militant groups Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad published obituaries identifying as combatants individuals previously listed by CPJ as journalists. Following the review, 20 Palestinian journalists were removed from CPJ's count, bringing CPJ's official tally of journalists killed by Israel down to 209, well below figures by other institutions such as the Palestinian Journalists Syndicate, which places the number at over 270 for comparison. The push to reconsider these long-standing definitions originated from sustained external pressure. In late May, outlets like the Washington Free Beacon attacked the CPJ board, specifically targeting Soon-Shiong for her vocal opposition to apartheid and her recognition of the war in Gaza as a genocide. The Washington Free Beacon. Free bullshit. Soon-Shiong noted that the proposal to exclude journalists from militant affiliated organizations emerged as a direct response to these pro-Israel hit pieces. Palestinian writer Mohammed El-Kurd condemned the move as a cowardly witch hunt designed to appease right-wing interest and reinforce Israel's justifications for killing journalists. Critics pointed out that this review mirrored the tactics of Israeli military's legitimization cell, a special unit tasked with finding information to whitewash the targeted assassinations of media crews in Gaza. So, the CPJ really needs to get their act together, and good on her for calling that out too, Soon-Shiong, for doing that. And we have to be diligent as people who consume information as well, that these people in these war zones, whether and even if they were affiliated with these groups, what they're saying, what they're reporting isn't necessarily propaganda if the facts bear out. You contrast that with Israel, who claims all kinds of shit and has zero facts to back them up. They're just good. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. I'm more like, fuck you, bro. This is interesting. We go back to Britain here, as British MPs demand a ban on a Russian children's cartoon. Yes, those horrible Russian cartoons that children love so much. More than 50 British MPs have urged the government to stop the popular Russian children's cartoon Masha and the Bear. Not to be confused with BJ and the Bear, because that was a monkey and a guy driving a truck. I gotta stop making these references. From being shown in the UK, claiming it may be used as a propaganda tool. The animated series, loosely based on a traditional Russian folk tale, follows the adventures of a mischievous little girl and a retired circus bear. It's one of the most popular children's shows online, with one episode, Recipe for Disaster, viewed more than 4.6 billion with a B times on YouTube. Last month, Netflix acquired the rights to 2 more seasons of the show and extended licensing agreements for existing seasons and spin-offs. The cartoon is available in Britain on ITVX. Also, maybe these MPs want to ban Netflix, too. In response, a cross-party group of British MPs has written to UK Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, arguing that some scenes in the cartoon contain propaganda content and supposedly normalized Soviet military imagery for children, referring to a couple of scenes in which Masha appears in what they described as a tank crew helmet, Soviet-style clothing, and a border guard cap. The lawmakers also referenced past accusations against the cartoon, including Kiev's claims that Russian-language children's content is a threat to national security, and Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsangna's recent accusation that the cartoon embeds militaristic themes in entertainment for children. Animacord, the studio behind the show, has rejected the accusations as false and defamatory, stressing that the series contains no political messaging and has never received any state funding. A spokesperson for the company said the cartoon has entertained families for in more than 100 countries for nearly 2 decades and is built around friendship, kindness, and imagination. Well, we can't have that. We can't have friendship, kindness, and imagination. That's just unheard of. In this day and age, London has not publicly backed the MP's demand, while UK officials said platform catalogs are a matter for broadcasters as long as they comply with local regulations. The lawmakers' demand has also been widely mocked online, with users ridiculing the idea that a children's cartoon about a little girl and a bear could pose a threat to Britain. Others have accused the MPs of wasting time on culture war theatrics instead of addressing more serious problems. Exactly. Russian officials have ridiculed past attacks on the cartoon, suggesting that Western critics are trying to find non-existent militarism in the series because they fear Russia's cultural influence and have no good shows of their own. That's true. We got some shit shows over here. Woo! Oh my goodness. When they cannot create their own proper content, they try to destroy good foreign content. That is Russian content. Russian MP Vitaly Milanov has said the push to ban Masha and the Bear comes amid wider restrictions on Russian media and culture in the West. Since 2022, Russian outlets have been banned across the EU, while artists have faced cancellations and public political scrutiny. Moscow has condemned these measures as censorship and Russophobia, accusing Western governments of using the Ukraine conflict to suppress Russian culture, language, and media. Masha and the Bear. I tell you, if they replaced it with BJ and the Bear, we need a revival. No, we don't need a revival. Not at all, actually. So take this next one with a grain of salt, because, you know, I'm always saying that you can't vote your way out of shit anymore. You need direct action. You need to get with your family, your friends, your people to make changes. But if it pisses off Israel, okay, that works too. So Israeli press alarmed as criticism of Israel becomes winning recipe in U.S. politics. This is Brian Lander, by the way. He's a big-time Zionist, so I don't know what the... Anyway, a string of primary victories led by left-wing Democratic candidates has triggered alarm across Israeli media and pro-Israel circles, with commentators warning that support for Israel no longer guarantees political success. The victory of Democratic Socialist Malat Kiros over 15-term pro-Israel U.S. Representative Diane DeGette in Colorado's primary election on Tuesday added to a series of wins by candidates who have challenged Israel's influence over U.S. politics, opposed the genocide in Gaza, and described Israel as an apartheid state. Which is true. I mean, 10 years ago, you would never hear anybody. Everybody, Israel, oh no, they're cool, they're cool. But it's funny how Genocide will turn around people's opinions. Kiros's win followed wins by 3 Democratic Socialist candidates backed by New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani, as well as another in Philadelphia congressional primary, and one in the Democratic primary for mayor of Washington, D.C. The Democratic Socialists are a left-leaning faction that often contests primary elections within the Democratic Party and is becoming a formidable force within the U.S. left. That is, when they actually fight for something. Israeli outlets have treated the results as more than a domestic U.S. political story. They have framed them as another sign that Israel's standing in the U.S., particularly among Democratic voters, is collapsing amid its war on Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran. In an editorial published on Thursday, the Jerusalem Post, whose owner has been closely associated with psychopath Benjamin Netanyahu, warned that the Democratic Party was moving further away from Israel. Who would have thought that we would ever be looking back nostalgically on the days when the anti-Israel squad in the U.S. Congress numbered only 4 people, the editorial said. Of course, the squad refers to a bunch of those people that did absolutely nothing once they got elected to office. That's AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. They became known for pushing the party left, on healthcare, climate justice, radical justice, and ballot. I wouldn't say pushing. I would say lightly tapping. Can you guys do? Oh, you don't want to? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I told you I had problems with this, but I'll put this out here for you. Many of the latest primary winners have campaigned on platforms that include universal health care, a universal basic income, publicly owned grocery stores. Now, the publicly owned grocery stores, Mamdani is actually pushing in New York City. I know this because I have friends in New York who are telling me that they're starting to open these publicly owned grocery stores in what are called food deserts, where it's really hard to get to places to shop for food. Ending military aid to Israel, stopping the genocide in Gaza, and recognizing Israel as an apartheid state. The Jerusalem Post described the latest wave of Democratic victories as an Israel problem. Uh-oh. The last time Israel had a problem, we had 2 buildings go down because of planes and 1 because of reasons. And the Pentagon getting hit, and then that 1 plane crashing in a ditch. The paper said the danger lies in how these candidates are already changing the party's priorities, changing how Democratic politicians approach Israel, and changing the tenor of the debate surrounding Israel. The Times of Israel also reflected the anxiety spreading through Israel's political and media establishment. Oh, single tear. One writer described the recent Democratic Socialist wins in New York as a cautionary tale, and compared them to the Russian Revolution of 1917, which ushered in the Soviet Union. See? And you're hearing a lot of this bullshit, too. They damn communists, the communists. It's like they're socialists, dude. That's why you got to fight the propaganda, y'all. Another writer at the outlet said the resounding victories signify that a new generation of Democrats have turned on Israel. Oh. The results mirror a sharp shift in public opinion. Polling by the Pew Research Center has found that almost 80% of Democrats and independents hold critical views of Israel. Among Democratic voters, support for Israel has eroded sharply. Quinnipiac University's surveys released on June 24th found that 48% of American voters believe the U.S. is too supportive of Israel. We told you about that. While 38% said U.S. support is about right, and 7% said Washington is not supportive enough. The Jewish Telegraphic Agency said New York's primary results felt more seismic than Mamdani's rise to City Hall last November. Being staunchly anti-Israel is no longer a roadblock to success in Democratic politics, although there are some Democrats who are trying to push back on this too. The old schoolers, they're getting mad bank from AIPAC. This is the first time that incumbent congressmen have lost their seats in campaigns in which they were repeatedly attacked for being too supportive of Israel, the outlet said. The agency added that whatever local issues shaped each race, the success of candidates who criticized Israel and the American, AIPAC, sent a powerful message. I mean, we told you recently about Thomas Massey losing his seat after a $30 million ad campaign, mostly by AIPAC and their cronies. The pro-Israel outlet, the Free Press, that's an oxymoron right there, founded by Barry Weiss, who is now the controversial editor-in-chief of CBS News, cast the results as part of a wider struggle inside the Democratic Party. It presented the battle as one between the party's pro-Israel old guard and an insurgent grassroots left that is described as violently anti-Israel and, in my opinion, full of common sense. In Haaretz, one opinion piece said the new mayor, Mamdani, has remade his city's politics at the expense of pro-Israeli incumbents who were tossed aside, and added that much of the political ammunition used against those incumbents was made in Israel. Another analysis in Haaretz said victories by Israel-critical Democrats demanding a break from the status quo in the U.S.-Israel relationship were now a feature of Democratic Party demands rather than a bug. Not only are Democrats fed up with the Israeli policies AIPAC defends, but also by its leading role as an outside spender in primary races, often fueled by Republican megadonor money in determining Democratic races. Now, I always say we need to change the system. We need a new system, and we need to figure that out, because trying to fix things in the current system is like putting Cool Whip on a shit sundae. You're not doing anything to make it better. You're just covering it up. But it is nice to see that more and more people are not afraid of AIPAC anymore, right? And I think part of that, obviously because of the videos and stuff we were getting out of Gaza and other places where Israel had were hammering and murdering these people. You know, you have that, but like politicians for the donations that they're getting from AIPAC. Look at Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, like over $1 million, at least millions of dollars in AIPAC funding. And unfortunately, if the Democrats do take over the House and Senate this year, those are going to be your leaders, Chucky the Schum, and Hakeem. I've never saw an AIPAC dollar I didn't like. Jeffries in control. And if the Democrats were actually smart, they would pick different leaders. But I don't think that they're going to do that. I'd love to be proven wrong, but we shall see. And I think Israel here is getting desperate now. So we have the James Lee video. This is from a couple of days ago. You may have already seen that, but so this is Israel's newly approved $200 million shekel initiative. And James does a good job of pointing this out for us. And the chick who played Blossom can go fuck herself too, by the way. So let's see what he has to say right now.
And the thought occurred to me, what are my kids about to witness? Like a big dude coming up to me as I'm getting into my car. What is happening?
What do you say?
That's terrifying. Oh, that's my embryonic. And I said, get in the car. But I'm like, I have like a chill right now.
Yeah, it's
going
terrifying.
up the side
It's
of my head,
terrifying.
because like whatever we believe, we don't approach people in public parking lots, right?
No, we don't approach people in public parking lots. We just blow up their apartments while they're in there sleeping. What if I told you the Chinese Communist government is investing tens of millions of dollars in diaspora education to, quote, strengthen connection to the CCP among young Chinese Americans? Oh, wait, no, that's Israel. From this morning, the Detroit Jewish News, Israel invests in Jewish education with North America in focus. Quote, Israel's government on Sunday approved a national plan to expand Jewish education in diaspora communities with a focus on North America, the Prime Minister's Office and Diaspora Affairs Ministry said. The initiative, led jointly by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Diaspora Affairs and Combating Anti-Semitism Minister Amichai Chikli, aims to increase access to formal Jewish education, strengthen Jewish identity, and deepen ties to Israel among younger generations. Investment in the initiative is expected to reach 200 million shekels, roughly $67 million. Quote, this is a significant investment in the next generation of the Jewish people and their identity, their values, and their deep connection to the state of Israel, Netanyahu said. Hold on a second. Isn't it anti-Semitic, quote unquote anti-Semitic, to insinuate that Jews have a dual loyalty to Israel? Or at least I've been told that many times. Oh yes, there it is. It is anti-Semitic to accuse Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. And that is according to the IHRA definition, working definition of anti-Semitism. But yet here we are, in which they are not only telling us, the public, that this is exactly what they're trying to do, but on top of that, they are in fact saying they think there's not enough of it, so they want to spend tens of millions of dollars more to make people more loyal to Israel. Yet, we are not allowed to talk about it, for it's racist, I guess. Let's take a listen to our favorite fictional honeypot, and if you don't know what I'm referring to, go watch The Big Bang Theory again and tell me that is not a show about how 3 women basically were honeypotting 3 Caltech astrophysicists. Anyways, I digress. Here we go.
I had people approach me wearing Zionism is racism shirts in a parking lot not far from here at my favorite vegan joint with my children. And the thought occurred to me, what are my kids about to witness? When October 7th happened, it just magnified. And it was actually Sacha Baron Cohen who said, we're about to see the largest campaign of anti-Semitism we've ever seen in history. And I was like,
I seem to remember being taught about another pretty serious campaign in anti-Semitism. We talked about it a lot in school, and from what I learned, it was pretty deadly, or am I just mistaken about that? Anyway.
Happened. I was afraid, like a lot of public Jews were afraid. I didn't know what I was going to find when I opened the gate to my house. I don't live in an expensive gated community. I live in a place where people can see me walking. I did not know what my children would experience. And when I saw what started happening to Jewish leaders, when I still see it, of course, many of us wondered, am I next? I had people approach me wearing Zionism is racism shirts in a parking lot not far from here at my favorite vegan joint with my children. And the thought occurred to me, what are my kids about to witness? Like a big dude coming up to me as I'm getting into my car. What is happening?
What do you say?
That's terrifying. Oh, that's Maya Bialik. And I said, get in the car. But I'm like, I have like a chill right now
Yeah, it's
going up the
terrifying.
side
It's
of my head,
terrifying.
because like whatever we believe, we don't approach people in public parking lots, right?
No, we don't approach people in public parking lots. We just blow up their apartments while they're in there sleeping.
You don't
The
intimidate
counted-
people.
Oh, a grown man approaching a 5'4" like mom, like what? You don't even know anything. You actually don't know. You don't know anything about me. And my sons would say to me, well, when's the last time you posted that you care about Palestinians? I said, I could tattoo.
Your son is trying to tell you something. Listen. And I get it. It's very hard to sympathize when you're a person who is so deluded in your thinking that you are sending bulletproof vests to the IDF as if they were the victims. Like, does she not realize the IDF are the ones encroaching on other countries, on other territories? Like, they are not the victims here. But no, instead we're told by groups like the ADL that there has been a historic rise, historic levels of anti-Semitism in America, all across the world, and that this is the biggest problem facing humanity. And let me just show you exactly what that means. Here's an incident. I can't even connect to my home's Wi-Fi without getting hate messages from my neighbor. And what is that hate message? Free Palestine. And you know what's funny? Is that there is a non-zero chance that that might be their own Wi-Fi. This is reported by Reuters last year. Fake plan to attack Australia synagogue fabricated by organized crime, meaning that They faked an anti-Semitic terrorist attack in order to garner sympathy from the world.
Almost immediately, experienced investigators within the Joint Counterterrorism Team believed that the caravan was part of a fabricated terrorist plot, essentially a criminal con job.
So to put it bluntly, and hopefully I can do that without getting deplatformed here, but what's going on is that they're trying to create a world where everybody else is a terrorist except for them. I mean, just take a look at what happened to Francesca Albanese. She is an Italian legal scholar, she's an expert in human rights, and an UN investigator who accurately documented the torture and genocide that's going on against the Palestinians and was subsequently sanctioned by the United States government. And again, they brag about this.
She is banned entry from the United States. She cannot use a bank card. She cannot use a debit card. She cannot receive a payment. It sends a message of deterrence, and after she was sanctioned, we got her husband, who works for the World Bank, who shares in her incitement. He was demoted from his position at the World Bank for incitement to hate.
How insane is this that she has been banned from the United States and debanked just for doing her job, which is to document human rights abuses, and somehow that has been determined to be an act of hate? Let's talk about how Israel is responsible for roughly 2/3 of the deaths of members of the press who have been killed in 2025. It's indefensible. So guess what they're going to do now? Check this out. This is from yesterday. The board of directors at the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, will formally change its definition of who qualifies as a journalist to broadly exclude slain Palestinian and Lebanese journalists who work for government-funded media outlets. Israeli, American, and Ukrainian journalists who work for state-funded outlets or are embedded with the military will remain recognized as journalists, of course. Let's talk about what's really going on here, because if you remember, Israel does not allow foreign journalists into Gaza unless they are being supervised by the IDF, which means that that is a propaganda tour and not actual journalism. And therefore, they say, well, everybody else in there is technically Hamas or whatever. And I think this is what leads to true anti-Semitism, this kind of subversion, okay? The influence on our elections. Now, today, we're finding out that they're funding re-education programs in the United States to make people more pro-Israel. They're staging fake attacks against themselves to drum up sympathy. And if anyone dares to bring any of that up, sorry, we have the power to excommunicate you from all of society.
From one Reform Jew to another, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You are perpetuating this idea that because you are Jewish or because I am Jewish, I then have to support the existence of an apartheid ethno-state. And that right there has sparked so much anti-Semitism here in the United States, but also internationally, because now people associate the violent Israeli government and Israeli army that are still currently genociding the Palestinian people and have now moved into Lebanon. We are now associated with that violence and with the killings of innocent civilians because the Israeli government has used Judaism as a scapegoat to convince the world and mainly other Jews that they have to do what they're doing for Jewish protection.
No notes. I 100% agree with that. I think that is the only path out, is for the Jewish community to stand up to Israel and say, we are not the same. You do not represent us. Of course, I'm not a member of the community, so I'm only coming in from an outsider perspective, and that I see this as blatant corruption and undue influence on people's personal sovereignty. And this is, I think, going to lead to more anti-Semitism, more racism. So I'll leave you today with a quote from the Voice of Rabbis. They say more journalists and politicians are finally saying it out loud. The modern state of Israel is not the same as historic Jewish identity. The old lie is peeling away. Zionism is not Judaism. Jews are not a political bloc owned by the state of Israel. We are diverse people with our own faith, views, and loyalties as citizens of our own countries. The conflation must end. That is it for me today. I'm curious to hear what you think. Is Zionism the same as Judaism? Sound off in the comment section below. I'm, of course, not going to stop documenting the ever-growing nefarious ways in which I think the Israeli government is trying to take over our country. So if you want to support my journalism, please go to my website, 5149jameslee.com, sign up to become a member. There's also an option to give a one-time donation, no subscription necessary. You can buy some merch as well. But if not, no worries at all. Please just do me a big favor, hype this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to the channel, turn on that notification bell so you can be the first to know when my next video drops. As always, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in the next one.
Advocates of Israel or pro-Israel people in the United States make two critical mistakes. One, on the one hand, is not delineating between America's interests and Israeli interests, because they're not always the same. But the second is always conflating criticism of a particular government with Jew hatred. Because if everything is Jew hatred, then nothing is Jew hatred.
Yeah. Exactly. And what he was talking about, what I like to call my regular ass Jews out there that have nothing to do with Zionism and are just trying to live their lives, right? They don't have any agendas like the Zionist regime in Israel does. So I'm glad to see that more and more of these regular ass Jews are standing up and saying, look, you know, they do not represent me. Do not conflate what they're doing with who we are. And unfortunately, we still have to just keep pushing that. We have, because there's a lot of people who say, oh, you don't like Israel. You must be anti-Semitic. You must hate the Jews. And it's like, yeah, you can come at those people with anger, but a lot of times they just don't know. They've just been fed so much bullshit their whole life that maybe if you talk to them and say, hey, look, no, these two are not the same, you might be able to get through to them. Not all of them, but at least some of them. And some is definitely better than none. That's for sure. So we're going to the Propaganda Watch today with talking about the 4th of July. You know, when people say, do you hate your country? Criticizing your own country doesn't necessarily mean you hate your country. Well, I despise the leadership of this country. Absolutely. I despise the propaganda that's been infused into generations of people that seem to think that America can do no wrong. It's like the meme says, are we the baddies? Yeah, we're doing a lot of bad shit. We don't go into countries to help those countries. And if we do, it's only for the self-interest of the United States. That's been like that for a long time, long before I was born or any of you. So Gen Z is an interesting group of people. As nearly half of Americans don't know what 4th of July is about. Only 39% of Gen Z correctly linked the celebration to the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. These kids are living in the now. They don't live in this past bullshit. You know, I'm proud to be an American with flags and shit, you know. Nice. The 4th of July. Well, Zionists lie, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Nearly half of Americans don't know what the country's 250th anniversary is actually celebrating, despite overwhelming majorities saying they are proud and grateful to be American, according to the Cato Institute. Propaganda is a hell of a drug. The milestone commemorates the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on July 4th, 1776. So they actually declared it on July 2nd, but I think they actually put it to paper on the 4th. I could be wrong about that. When the 13 American colonies declared independence from Great Britain. The think tank published its 4th of July national survey on Thursday, saying the poll of 2,253 U.S. adults was conducted by Morning Consult on June 25th through the 26th. It found, quote, civic ignorance about U.S. history and the system of government, with 46% of Americans not knowing what the country's 250th anniversary commemorates, while 53% correctly identified it as the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. The confusion was sharpest among young adults. Nearly 2/3 of respondents aged roughly 18 to 26, often referred to as Gen Z. 61% did not know what America's 250th anniversary commemorates, while only 39% correctly linked the celebration to the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. The survey also found that younger Americans were less likely to view the Founding Fathers as courageous leaders and more likely to accept the 1619 Project's claim that preserving slavery was a primary reason for the American Revolution. The poll also found broader gaps in basic civic knowledge. While 77% knew George Washington was the first president, 58% didn't know the main purpose of the Constitution. Only 41% correctly said it was to establish and limit the powers of government. Yeah. Boy, yeah, hell of a document, huh? It's worked so well recently. Another 57% didn't know why the American colonies declared independence from Britain in 1776, with only 43% citing high taxes and lack of representation. A majority, 55%, also did not know that the Supreme Court has the final say when the president and the court disagree over whether a presidential action is constitutional. Despite widespread gaps in civic knowledge, the survey found broad support for the country's founding ideals. At the same time, 57% of Americans said the U.S. has moved away from those principles, and 56% feared it could stop being a free country within the next 50 years. The next 50 days. Respondents cited corruption, politicians ignoring the Constitution, the rich having too much power, and excessive presidential power as the leading threats to freedom. America. So I look at it like this. When people say, you don't love your country? If you found out that your child that you raised has grown up to become a serial killer, would you be proud of that child? You may still love that child because that is your child. But you definitely wouldn't be proud of their actions or the actions that they were allowed to do. And that's exactly what the United States has done. They've gone into these countries. Either the CIA goes in and starts coups and installs puppets, or they just go in and just kill millions of people and call it freedom. When their own country wasn't even, at least in World War II, we were attacked. In December 7, 1941, we were attacked by the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. And even then, it's been said that FDR knew that was going to happen and let it happen so that they could get into World War II, because people were war weary after World War I. They said they don't want to be in another world war. They don't want any part of it. So it seems like all this country has done is manipulated its people, propagandized it to the hilt, and has it's basically, now we're kind of the laughing stock of the world. And it's our country's own fault. And and to an extent, it's the people who have been propagandized and have elected these idiots and fools and money takers and backstabbers to office in order to advance those goals. Trump classified every data center as a military. Yeah. You know why? Because I think James Lee is right. They're using it for surveillance. It has nothing to do with AI. Over 5,000 data centers in the United States. It's to keep an eye on us, to make sure we stay in lockstep with them or with Israel or whoever we're in business with. So, yeah, good stuff there. And by good, I mean not good. But what is good is helping people. And I think that's, like I said, we have to get back to direct action, mutual aid, because we're not going to vote our way out of this. As Mom Donnie, that's great if he's doing good things. I look at actions, not words. What he's doing so far, yes, but I mean, in the grand scheme, are these people going to actually make a difference? We'll see. I doubt it, but I'm very skeptical and old, and that's just the way I'm built. But I do want to remind people about our mutual aid that we have for folks. All the links are down below in the description. If you can donate, that's great. If you can't, please share out the links. Let's get our folks, let's get them some help. And if you know anybody who has a GoFundMe or any kind of fundraising apparatus for themselves that they're in need of mutual aid, please email me at extrabulla@gmail.com. We'll be sure to get them on and put them on blast, get them out there, and hopefully get them some help for that. Oh, look at you, CBC voter. Hey, Uncle Warren, Friday or Saturday night show? Well, to tell you, tonight, since tomorrow is July 4th, and to be honest with you, I'm probably going to be a little tired and drunk and probably sleepy from eating too much food. So tonight, we've been doing it on Saturday, but for tonight, this week, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook, secret show, sillies, science, all kinds of good stuff to make sure that you get a little mental break from the psychosis that you have to deal with every day in this country and wherever you are around the world. And if you are in a happy place, let us know. We'd love to we'd love to join you there. So I have not, since it's a holiday weekend, I got not one but two little funsies for you. I think you'll enjoy these. Just keep in mind that I am 57 years old, but my brain is sometimes 13 years old. And when I see silly stuff, I go tee-hee, and I got to share it with my peeps. So the first one is French typo on Ottawa posters heralds formation of pubic squares. Placettes pubiques. A spelling mistake on French language posters promoting a City of Ottawa initiative caused them to mistakenly announce the formation of pubic squares. Where's the, do you have hair on your special place? Purple posters explaining the city's Uncommon Spaces initiative, which will close off 3 sections of the Centertown area. You remember Ottawa is like French Canadian. Of the Centertown area to create public squares for gatherings and events from June until October were erected in both English and French. Social media users quickly noticed the French version of the signs, which were meant to read Placettes Publiques, or public squares, instead read Placettes Pubiques, which translates to pubic squares. The signs were noted in multiple locations on Saturday, but Sabrina LeMay, the executive director of the Centertown Business Improvement Area, said they have been since taken down or shaved away. This was an unintentional translation error that made its way into production. As soon as we became aware of it, we took steps to have it corrected, she told CTV. City of Ottawa officials said they were not involved in the creation of the posters. No. City Councilor Stéphanie Plante, who serves as liaison counselor for the City of Ottawa's French Language Services Advisory Committee, told Radio Canada the mistake was unacceptable. We want to attract francophones. We want people from Gatineau to come here and participate in our events. I think they'll think we're taking this a bit lightly when we make mistakes like Publix without the L. She said, I think somebody got the L when they put those signs out. And that ain't enough for you. Go with the flow. Car maker debuts voice-controlled in-vehicle toilets. You lived in Ottawa for 14 years? Or since you were 14 years old? Did you go to the pubic squares? Pubic! Let's talk about these car shitters. If you gotta go while on the go, you're in luck. But there we go. Having to pee or poop during long road trips is now no longer a pain in the butt. As Chinese electric vehicle engineers are gearing up to roll out a fleet of cars featuring built-in toilets. They're putting a little restroom in your vroom vroom. Oh, look at that. That says the Series 5. Maybe that should say the Feces 5. Sorry, and throw that in there. Series, an automotive manufacturer specializing in high-end electric vehicles. And intelligent technology has been granted a patent for an in-vehicle toilet that slides under a passenger seat for mid-trip use. The feature is meant to satisfy users' toilet needs on long journeys while camping or while staying in the car, per the patent series filed with the China National Intellectual Property Administration this week, according to the BBC. Oh boy. And as if the ability to relieve yourself while on the run isn't cool enough, the car makers reportedly plan to equip the potty to appear with either the push of a button or through voice activated commands. So if you're driving, just make sure, if you're about to, something crazy's happening, don't go, oh shit, because that might, when nature calls, this technology will answer literally. Hey, Naybones, what's up? Yeah, that should call it the series 2. To limit odors, the in-car commode will come with a fan and an exhaust pipe implemented to funnel funky smells out of the automobile per the patent paperwork. Waste will be collected in a tank that has to be emptied manually. Ew. The toilet to go will also boast a rotating heating element that evaporates urine and dries excrement. I hope you're eating right now. When not in use, the can will be concealed beneath the passenger seat, making full use of the space inside a car without requiring excess room. So here's how that works. So you just slide that out there, and then you just put your little cheekies right there, do a little series based in Chongqing has not announced an official release of vehicles with the onboard bathroom. It's unclear if cars boasting the Lux lavatories will ever actually hit the Chinese electric vehicles market. It's a booming industry with innovators clamoring to pump up the trendiest, most futuristic frills, including everything from the ability to fly down New York City roadways at over 200 miles per hour to literally flying in the sky. In-vehicle toilets, however, are much more rare, but not totally unprecedented. A 1954 Rolls-Royce Silver Wraith limousine featuring a passenger seat potty hit Sotheby's for just under $150,000. The brainchild of inventor Joseph J. Mascouch, Mapoop, from New Jersey. Travelers in his ritzy ride could broker deals from the inbuilt telephone before retrieving a bottle from the gold-plated toilet cum champagne cooler under. Oh, it's a toilet and a champagne cooler. Just be careful which cork you pop under the seat cushion. Anywho, that's all you get. This was a long ass show. This was like one of the old school ones. We used to go almost 3 hours. Yeah, air freshener not included. Yeah. Maybe they put the poopery in there. They give you get a free assortment of poopery products. If you haven't seen the poopery, or the Squatty Potty commercials, those are the ones with the rainbow, with the unicorns that poop ice cream. It's really cool. Again, tonight, secret show, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time. No show tomorrow, obviously, so please be careful. If you're celebrating, don't drink and drive. Drink plenty of water if you are drinking alcohol too. If you live in areas that are dry, probably stay away from fireworks. That's probably just going to cause some harm for you. Just be safe up there. Stay cool in more ways than one. Car can really shit and get. That's right. And I will see you again Wednesday morning. Well, after tonight, you'll see me again Wednesday morning with Laine P on the Undercurrent. If you're not subscribed to the Undercurrent, please do so. That's the Undercurrent, the number 4, and YOU is the channel name. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe there. We got the news you can use. Laine does a good job with the catch of the day. And we have great guests on there a lot of times when we have guests. And it's a good show. Not because I'm on it. I'm just I'm just the production monkey. Laine's the star of the show, as well she should be, because she has a wealth of knowledge, and she's a really cool chick. So check us out Wednesday morning, and then I'll be back again with the show again next week, either 11 or noon Eastern. I was able to get it done early today because I know people are heading out. So anywho, y'all, I appreciate you. I love you, each and every one of you. Stay out of the cults. Use your critical thinking skills. If you wanna subscribe to this show, we appreciate it too. If you're not a subscriber yet, and if you want to donate, the links are down below. Again, if you can't donate, if you could share out the links, that helps us out a whole bunch too. So, anywho, I'll see you tonight. If I don't see you, I'll see you when I see you. Happy 4th. Be safe. Be well. And word to the mother. Peace.
This is SETI Alpha 5. Woo!
Soon. Filed under artificial intelligence, bathrooms, cars, electric cars, poop, urination, urine.